Okay, folks, here we go.
Guys, here we go. Let's have a good show.
1B, stand by. Okay,
Yeah.
Yacht,
Yeah,
take it.
get at midfield.
Take
Just go
it.
right now. Go to camera 3.
Can
3.
you
Go to the get perfect, just like that.
I'll just go ahead.
Yeah, graphics 2 is going to be up for the first. Okay.
Go
Go right now. Go to camera 3. Go. Yep. Go to the get perfect, just like that. No music.
I'm going to hand to Q, Sophie.
Wait for it.
On radio in the Canal Zone.
All right, guys, mic check.
Go ready.
Okay, Ricky, mic.
Yep, I am ready.
Wait for it. 2.5.
Willie, mic check.
Yep, let's go.
1B, stand by.
10, 9, 8,
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1,
and we're live.
Okay, and go for it, guys.
All right, guys, here we are, 8 o'clock Eastern time. It is 5 o'clock out west there with Ricky Arroyo. And of course, in the Canal Zone, it's also 8 o'clock. Happy Friday, Ricky.
Happy Friday, everybody. God, the best day of the week, guys.
It is indeed.
Really, it is just absolutely beautiful out here. The weather is unbelievable. I think they skipped winter out here, man, this year.
Yeah, we definitely felt it today. It's been unseasonably cold here in Tampa, but and
Us is the other way. We're like, I'm wearing a sweater, and I'm actually kind of warm, thinking it's going to get cold. Well, welcome, everybody. Welcome to all our friends, family, our viewers, everybody that comments with us and joins us tonight, Friday. As you know, Friday is happy hour at the Balboa Yacht Club. This is the podcast, guys, that is completely dedicated to discuss and learn about the Panama Canal, its history, its news from the former days to today, which, again, we're front center on the world news. As always, we love to start our podcast with the toast, a Irish beer toast. And listen, we got a great show, guys. I'm really looking forward to this. I think Willie's going to have a good time as well and enjoy this, and let's have fun.
Great.
Cheers.
Yeah, salute, everybody. Cheers.
Salute.
And Jim, good to see you, Jim and Diane, and happy birthday, Jim. Jim
Yes, happy
made another trip around the globe, the fabulous globe here yesterday. So, and Jim, let me know when you're ready to come on and do that Electric Division show. We're really, really looking forward to doing that. So whenever you're ready, just
we're ready. Yes.
We've got an awesome show tonight, guys. Nonetheless, it's first show of the month, so we know Dave Dahlstrom, our Canal Zone historian, joins us.
Mm-hmm.
But he has a special guest joining him that's been on the show here as well. That's also very avid historian, but he focuses on the Panama Railroad, and that's Nodier Garcia from PR History. So that's going to be a cool show tonight. So don't miss that. But in the meantime, we'll say hello to a couple other folks here, and then move along to some quick announcements. Looking forward to. Yeah, it's going to be a good show, Jim. This is going to be a really, really cool show. Again, history shows are always awesome, especially Canal Zone history shows are always amazing. I'm a big fan.
We're always
history
learning
in general. So, yes, learning opportunities indeed. It should be a good time. And then feel free, Jim, to post information on the on that golf tournament coming up in November if you want. Throw it in the chat there and let us know there. Mark Cicero, how you doing, brother? Happy Friday to you.
Class of 81. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah, Mark just put out another video. This guy is rapidly becoming a jack of all trades when it comes to that music business, man. He's putting out some good. He obviously has some really good tunes that he comes out with, and now he's adding some the video aspect of it as well. We did the Panama Days video. We did, of course, the Christmas video as well. But he's got a couple other ones out there now. One that just recently with carnivals and everything going on in New Orleans and Mardi Gras that should be really cool. So throw that information on there as well. I should have written it all down, but I didn't have my notes set up here. But anyhow, nonetheless, Vern, happy Friday to you, brother. Vern's busy again. He's going to be chiming in and out as he can here, but he's busy. He does a lot of volunteer work on Friday night. So
yes, El Fulo de Colón, Vern.
That's right. But Eric, good to see you, brother.
Hey, Eric.
Beers. Eric was generous
Cheers.
enough to buy us some beers earlier today. Appreciate that. That QR code there, guys. Feel free if you want to scan that and send a couple of brewskis our way. But nonetheless, let's get our announcements going here so we can move along, because we've got a jam-packed historical show, and so we're gonna kind of move things all along there with our, a couple quick announcements, and then go ahead.
SCN Television presents K Pasa. And now here's this evening's host, Army Sergeant Bob Foster.
Good evening and welcome to K Pasa. We've got two guests tonight. First Sergeant First Class Jim Webb. Sergeant Webb's with the 227th Military.
There you go, Herb Albert and that Tijuana Brass telling us what's going on in the zone. That was K Pasa. I think it was it every night of the week, or was it just Wednesday? I think it was just Wednesday nights that they had that show. It was only like 5 minutes long. It was pretty short.
Yeah, it was 5 minutes.
But back then we're doing your thing. You're sitting on the living room floor there, playing with your toys or whatever, and you just hear that mom and dad are watching SCN, and you hear that show come on, So
was it on before the lights or after the lights? It had to be after the lights.
8 o'clock. If you look on the still,
8 o'clock. Yeah, the lights already come on for sure. 6 o'clock when the lights.
Oh yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Willie, reunion. This is the month where everyone is saying yes to going to the reunion. So let's keep informing everybody about the reunion dates and whatnot, Willie.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Because there's, the society just put out the reunion schedule recently. You can go, of course, to pancanalsociety.org, and Ricky will throw that banner up there. Throw the scrolling one if you can.
I got you.
But anyhow, let me throw that up on the screen here so we can see what's going on with our friends at the Pan Canal Society. So the reunion this year is from July 8th through the 12th. Okay, so it's not the July 4th weekend. Hopefully that'll make things a little bit easier on flights and stuff, but
and cheaper too, because it's not the prime weekend. Right.
It's not that 4th of July weekend. So it is July 8th through the 12th at the Rosen Shingle Creek Resort. That it's pretty good sized place there. It's kind of a pretty good layout. There are some things that are kind of spread out. I mean, you're definitely going to do your walking, but
make sure you bring your Fitbit, because you're going to get your steps in for sure.
Yeah, no, you definitely will. Especially, the class reunions, they're always on one side of that resort, and then typically your ballrooms and stuff that they have all set up are all on the other side. But hey, you know what? Make sure that you pass through a bunch of bars and restaurants on the way there, so you grab yourself a cold one on the way to whatever.
And there's always people that you're going to run into, so don't even worry about that.
You get past that check-in area, and before you get to the stairs where you get to the ballrooms, that one little stretch there that's about 20 or 30 yards, that's kind of like little canal zone right there. That's where you have your Zonians always hanging out, man.
Yep. Hey, we got a little update here on the golf.
Yeah. Excellent. All right, so it's in Tampa, Bel Air Beach, and St. Pete area. So anybody in the Tampa Bay area, and we do have a bunch of golfers in this area, no doubt about it. So if you guys are in town November 9th through the 13th, reach out. And Jim, do you want them to reach out? Is there an email address that you want them to get more information or reach out to somebody? And if so, feel free to throw it on there as well. But there's a golf tournament right here in Tampa. Should be a lot of fun. That's a great weekend. That's actually my brother's birthday, November 9th. So should be a good time. But reach out to Jim, Sheila. Or we'll definitely post more information as we get closer to that date. I definitely want to attend. That should be a lot of fun. But hey, how you doing? Happy Friday to you.
Hi, Sheila.
So anyhow, guys, as far as the reunion goes then, so we've got the dates there. Registration deadline, May 29th. Okay. Don't miss it. Don't be late. By the way, you have to be a member of the society in order to be able to participate in the reunion. And we beat a dead horse with this, but the discounts you get at that place, for just in between your stay, your parking, and your food, will more than pay for your 1-year membership to the society. So it really, at that point, join the society and you'll get that back in your discounts.
In your discounts, on food and whatnot.
Sure. Reach out to these guys at office@pancanalsociety.org. And as you can see at the bottom of the screen there, the scrolling text there is the website address as well, pancanalsociety.org. All their information is on there. This one's going to be a big deal, guys. This is something Ricky touched base on last week.
Yes. Regarding soiree is what I'm looking forward to on Saturday.
It absolutely is. And the thing about it, guys, is this kind of has how would you put it? It's kind of lost its luster, right?
I think so. Yeah.
You know, and so I think this way it's it's bringing back a tradition that kind of has seemed to have disappeared, you know, within that reunion. Was that Saturday night was a big deal, the ball, you know, and you could always,
Everybody dressed up.
Yeah,
Yes,
man,
it
it
was a
was-
formal ball, and it felt like it. And that's what I'm looking forward to, is that formal,
yeah.
ball.
Yeah, but this one, you know, it's it's going to be called the Grand Tivoli Soiree. It's a dinner affair with photos and all that good stuff. So it's going to be a good time, guys. That's one of those fun ones that, you know, what happens is when the pictures come out later on, and you know, of course, Carlton Morris takes amazing pictures now at the reunion, and when you see them, you'll be like, damn, I wish I would have done that, you know. And also, after you do it, even if you do decide to do it, take some nice clothes, you know, take because that one.
Oh,
you know,
yeah. There's no shorts, flip flops, T-shirts. You're not getting in with that. Dress nice, guys.
Dress nice, and it'll be fun. You know, it's just one of those things, you know, go back to the, you know what? The reunion is all about going back to that nostalgia of growing up and living in a Canal Zone. And for a lot of us, you know, that era of the proms and the Christmas.
I was just
formals and
gonna
the
say
stuff,
those were the bombs. Those were the
You know,
best times. Well,
it was
the way we
dorky, but it was
dress,
fun, you know,
with friends, to
Yeah.
good restaurants, good
Everybody
food.
felt
Everybody was dressed
all
up.
decked out. Yeah, it was fun,
Yeah,
man.
a
It was
lot of
one
fun.
time, you're right, and this is a chance to do the same thing here. So make sure you do it, but it you're gonna have to have a ticket for it. So make sure you do it soon enough. All right, don't wait till
Mhm.
the last second to do it. Also, the society is looking for reunion sponsors. You know, we may have to reach out to Alex and Thane and see if we want to do something like we did last year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Also, if you want to become a vendor, let me tell you what, man, that vendor place, that's like a mall, man. That's like a Canal Zone mall, dude. If you want to find something Canal Zone, go to the vendor place, man. 'cause
And if you listen, you gotta if you're there on Thursday, make sure you go there because that's where everything is. If you wait till late Friday, Saturday, everything's sold out. I'm
Yep,
telling
there
you,
you go.
gotta get there Thursday.
Look, Jim's already got his tickets right on. That's the way to do it, man. Get your
Yeah.
stuff and get it out of the way, and then you don't have to worry about that. It's done, right? 'Cause the
Absolutely.
reunion will be here. No, I mean, listen, we just celebrated New Year's, and now we're in the first week in March, right? That reunion will be here in no time flat. So make sure you get this stuff done ASAP. Don't wait.
Willie, an announcement. You know what today is, Willie? Our 2nd year
Oh,
anniversary.
that's right. It sure
And
is.
it started with Dave Dahlstrom on March, the first week of March,
How about that? We've
2
gone
years
full
ago.
Circle.
The
Yeah,
three of us that we talked about, Cayuca.
That's what it was. That's
So
right.
2 years, every single Friday we've been here with you guys.
That's awesome, man. Well done, man.
Yes, sir. I mean, we've got nothing but topics to go to, guys. One thing about the Canal Zone is a lot of interesting stuff going on there.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. So, so that's pretty much it, guys. Again, get onto their website, pancanalsociety.org. Make sure you get your membership taken care of first and foremost, right? You're talking $1 and change a week is what it's costing you, and you'll get all that back and then some with your discounts at the reunion. May 29th is the date you got to keep in mind. That's your deadline for registration for the reunion. So, but a lot of cool stuff as usual. So just
As
check them out.
usual.
Go to the website and you know, do your thing, man, and
Yeah.
do it the right way.
Willie, I got another update. All you guys that went down to Panama for the reunion, if you remember the one band that played, I believe it was Thursday night at the taco place,
Okay.
Lisa Palm, the Zonian Lisa Palm, she sang for a band. It's a live cover band. They're really, really good, called Las Vegas.
Yep. That's
As
right.
you know, Lisa's an incredible talent singing away all the latest hits. Well, they've got 2 gigs coming up. Burger Week, which is coming up. That's a big thing in
Right on.
Panama. Burger Week is huge in Panama. All the top restaurants compete against in this, try to be the top burger in Panama. And they also got a gig at the Radisson Riviera. Willie, this is a hotel that nobody really talks about. I think we should. It's in Chamen, Playa Caracol. And it's like a really nice resort with all the amenities that you want from a Radisson. But anyway, so on the
for them.
14th of March, starting at 5 p.m., Las Vegas will be playing at Playa Caracol, the Radisson Riviera. So make sure you guys out there are down there, go give Lisa some love. And from all the Canal Zone, Lisa, congratulations on your success, and good luck with all your gigs this month.
Yeah, absolutely. That's really cool, And real quick, on the 14th, also, for what it's worth, don't forget that, and I'll just throw it on the screen real fast here. We talked briefly about it last week. Is Warren Gibbs and his kids, Stone and Brenner? They're going to be down in Panama at a jiu-jitsu tournament. It's a jiu-jitsu brasileño at the Centro de Combates in Panama City, man. So look them up if you're down in Panama and go check them out, man. You get some Zonians that are coming down to Panama to compete. So definitely check those guys out and give them some love, man. That's pretty cool. So good luck to you guys, man.
Well, Mr. Soiree, that's what we have on the Bochinche. If you're ready for some news, Bochin news?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and we're going to do it short, guys, because there's, we've got two historians here waiting for us. But like always, we like to update you on the ports. Big deal going on there. It was quite a quiet week. The only thing that really happened was, Panama took over the ports. They're operating now. Everything's going quite well. B, the Chinese, they raided their offices at the beginning of the week. I believe it was Monday, if not Friday of last week, because they were holding back information. So they went in there and raided the offices and got all the information they wanted. And from that came some surprises, which we'll talk about here in a second. But anyways, the Chinese now bumped up their damages in the courts to $2 billion because of the raid. But a lot of these law scholars that are out there talking about this say China doesn't really have a chance on this. So we're looking forward for that to end soon. But what they did find, another reason why the Chinese won't win this case is the Chinese found a way, they found a loophole to get away from paying, workers. So they brought in this other company to handle all the labor force, as a subcontractor. So of course they didn't pay into the Social Security programs,
right.
None of the things that you normally would pay for a worker. So they found that corruption in. And you throw that on top of the other stuff, and there's about a 90% chance they're not going to win this lawsuit. So I think the Chinese are starting to see that they got to move on. It's a done deal.
It's really hard to do something like that when you're playing with dirty money to begin with.
Right? Yeah. So Panama's treating it like it's a done deal. See you later. We're moving on. Thank you very much. See you in court, kind of thing. And it's a good thing that the Panama is reacting this way. It's showing a lot of independence. And then, Willie, so that's kind of it on the ports. Again, we'll keep you informed of everything that's going on with the canal. The ports are the big thing, as well as the bridge. And last week or 2 weeks ago, we talked about that. Another thing we like to talk about, guys, is our very, very likable mayor, Meyer Misrachi. As we mentioned last week, he entered Panama into a contest that the Boring Company, the Elon Musk Boring Company, put out a contest that if you win it, whatever city wins the best proposal, he's going to pay for 100% of a new tunnel in whatever city. Well, they had the contest, and they came down to the 14 finalists, and Panama is the only city outside the United States that made it to the 14th finalists.
There you go.
So Meyer got Panama into that, but this week Meyer was interviewed and he said, "Have you mentioned this to ACP? Did ACP, the Panama Canal Company, did ACP, give the green light?" And he kind of said, "Well, not really." Kind of like forgot about that. So that could make things difficult, but we'll see. Guys, if you don't know Meyer Misrachi is a young mayor. He's like 36 years old. But one of the things that this young man did in 2014, he launched a company called Cryptex, which is, if you guys out there know the one company called Signal, exactly like that. Basically, it's privacy and encryption of your messages. So he's one of the first guys that got into that before WhatsApp and all those guys. Cryptex, and they're still around. That's the name of his platform. But he also has this company called Geeky Drop. which is very safe. E-commerce, a marketplace in Panama, where you're not getting ripped off, and people are finding that you can sell stuff in Panama through Geeky Drop, and whatever you buy, you're gonna get. So he's got that company. He's got 2 more companies outside. He's got 4 companies total. Another one that he has is called Geeky Motors, and what he does is he sells Teslas, whether new or used. But he's the Geeky Motors is behind the Teslas in Panama.
Okay,
yeah, and his latest one, which makes all the sense, especially for architects and engineers, is called ELAP, and it's a local file sharing platform. So basically, for like architects and engineers to and the building department to send plans back and forth, because plans are big, huge files. So that's our mayor, young man, and he's taking on some incredible projects in Panama. One of the ones, Willie, that we've mentioned here that is just beginning now is La Via España. If you guys, everybody that been to Canal Zone or Panama knows La Via España is kind of like the financial center of Panama.
Where was the place that we would go drink on Via España? What was a cool bar there in the 80s that we would go and drink at?
For me, Via España.
Here.
Bacchus was right off it.
No,
and
that was a
Bacchus
club. That was a nightclub. I'm talking just a bar. Munich's, exactly.
Oh, yeah, Munich, for sure.
Yeah.
That's Via España. All right, that's where it starts. That's right. Well, it's an $80 million upgrade of that road. So that's our story on Meyer.
Nice.
One thing, Willie, before we get to the boys here, Panama, one of the things that Panama's doing is they've got this government office called INADE, where they train people in Panama like an apprenticeship program, very similar to the apprenticeship Canal Zone apprenticeship program. Which, by the way, Willie, that's going to be a good show for us to do and learn more about that, because a lot of us knew about it, but like me, I tried to get in it, but I didn't as a tugboat captain. But man, I would love to hear about the apprenticeship program. Well, Panama is really promoting this INADE because Panama has to supply the labor for all these projects we're talking about.
Well, you think about like that whole, recently we're talking about the tunnel going under the canal, for the rail line, and watching some of the videos that were made of that, and the people they're interviewing, they're all Panamanians, and these are technology jobs. They're labor jobs, but it's a technology labor. It's not just somebody schlepping concrete against a wall there and digging with a shovel. These people have serious knowledge behind that construction skill there, and it's nice to see that you're using Panamanians to do it as opposed to importing people to
80% of the workforce by law.
Yeah,
so
man.
Between the ports, the railroads, the bridges, etc., one of the things that they were talking about, everybody out there, is what they really need is heavy equipment operators. And those guys are making $2,000 every 2 weeks, $4,000 a month in Panama. That's huge money. Yes.
Yeah,
so they're promoting this and going, hey, we need a bunch of heavy equipment operators. Every paycheck is $2K after taxes. So
keep this in mind if you're thinking about that, or somebody here that maybe a family member or something that they go, hey, opportunity to go to Panama for a couple of years and make some good money. Get in touch with Rodolfo Arias. He'll help you get the paperwork done and get all that stuff set up and get down there. Because let me tell you what, $50,000 a year in Panama is great money. Okay, it's fantastic money, man, and that's kind of on the bottom end of what these opportunities are.
I wonder how many 60-year-olds can drive heavy equipment operators. But I mean, I would for $4,000 a month, a retired job, right? Jesus Christ, I was like a great deal.
Maybe Dodd's getting ready to go down there on Monday. Dodd and Tierney are, which happy birthday next week for you, Dodd, as well. But
hey, right on, yeah,
he may get himself that gig and stay down there. Who knows? You never know.
Well, there's a lot of opportunities for all the young kids in Panama. So that's what we got, Willie. Always updating everybody on the latest news. Hey, what's going on, Leave?
Cool. Well, listen, man, that's the thing about Panama is it seems like it really is a growing, lot of great opportunities there. I'm curious what to see, a lot of Americans, a lot of Zonians have chosen recently to now start moving back to Panama. You know, Johnny McGee's just broke ground on his place. You know, they started building his place out there in Coronado, and a couple other the ones that you see posting and whatnot. And you start to wonder then what the next generation is looking like from the standpoint of what we knew Panama to be like back in the days in the 70s and 80s, right? Coronado in the interior, and certainly El Valle and Peñonome and Las Tablas those were road trips, right? You're going there, it took a long time, and you know, recently those are considered almost suburbs now of Panama. Some people, you know, Ralph Furlong when he was down
Coronado's like a suburb now.
correct. So now think about this with everything that's growing now on the west bank of Panama, right? From the canal. Are there opportunities here for businesses and for Americans to come down there and set something up? Because you've got a rail line that's going to go all the way out to Chiriquí now. You've got, you know, another highway that's going to go north-south on the west bank. And so you're going to see an explosion in that area. If nothing else, man, it'd be nice to get a bunch of Zonians to pull up some money. And
I got to get Jerry Curtis to open up a
Right?
construction company down there.
Yeah, because the opportunities are going to start just blowing up on that side of the bridge now.
Absolutely. Yep.
You know, so that should be pretty cool, man. But hey, Leaf, what's up, man? Good to see you, brother. Happy Friday to you. So anyway, let's move right along. These guys are waiting to
let's get our guys on, Willie.
Let's get some bills paid real quick with our friends from Howler Monkey, and then we're going to get Dave Dahlstrom and Noyer Garcia to give us some really cool Panama Canal Zone history. Pat, what's up, man? The continued growth of Panama middle class. Yeah, it really is 100%. And that's what I'm saying. That entire West Bank now, you know, from the canal over to probably past Coronado, that area you're going to see that in 10 years, it's going to be unrecognizable. 20 years, you know, everything is going to grow because there's no room on the other side anymore. Right. And so that's the direction it's all going to go. So yeah, looking forward to that. Should be really cool. But anyhow, let's say hello to our friends at Howler Monkey Sauce and get some bills paid here and get these guys on here.
Absolutely.
We're still looking for our Howler Monkey Hot Sauce spokesperson. Just got an email from Panama.
You've got mail.
Hey,
with
Matt,
me,
and I grew up behind Howard Air Force Base in Panama.
this
I can talk
show.
about hot sauce.
The 2 weeks
pizza.
before we did like ram
Rico.
shows. It was just. But then we decided to make it a weekly show, and it was you, me, and Willie. Like Cayuco was my first show, man.
So I just need la camera and say, I'm Mac. I grew up in these trees next to Howard Air Force Base. Hey, are we really going to Napoli? And let me tell you, the flavors of ají chombo, garlic, and onions, they each hit you one at a time, and it's so delicious. Howler Monkey Original brings the true taste ají chombo of Panama to your pizza game.
Your pizza game, I like that part.
Do you know a Howler Monkey who can describe the sweet heat of our original with authentic ají chombo peppers, or the fresh punch of verde where habanero warmth meets crisp bell pepper? How about the bold tang of Amarillo, yellow Scotch bonnets blended with mustard seeds? And of course, our hot, the same great flavor as original, fired up with red habaneros for that fire. Our sauces are all natural, no preservatives, gluten-free, pure flavor and pure fire. Are you the next Howler Monkey spokesperson?
Let's see who that next Howler Monkey spokesperson is. And another one is rolling out here this week coming up, which will be our next for this next month's promos and stuff. And then, of course, we've got our fourth one, which we're still working on that idea. But anyhow, thank you guys. Appreciate it. Remember, guys, you can find these guys on Amazon and here in Florida at Publix and a couple other grocers, but you can always find it on Amazon as well. And where is it in Panama? I think in Magoo's, isn't it? Did they have it, Ricky?
I'm not sure.
I thought I had read that they have it at Magoo's.
Magoo's will definitely have it, but I think all the grocery stores have it too.
In Panama?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, right on. Excellent. Anyhow, so first of the month is our history month, and we have not one but two historians joining us. So David Dahlstrom, our Canal Zone historian, Noyer Garcia, our Panama Railroad historian. Welcome to the Happy Hour, guys.
Thank you. I'd like to especially thank Nodia for coming on and helping me out with this. You know, we met on the show when I was doing some info about the tram. I think you put me in contact with Nodia, and we've been in contact periodically ever since. And I think we've taught each other a bunch of stuff. So I'm glad, Nadia, you've agreed to come on and help us out tonight.
Right on.
Sure thing. Yeah. Thank you guys for having me again. Again, congratulations on your second anniversary, guys.
Thank you.
And I'm happy here to be with Dave. Dave, he's a great guy. He knows a lot about history, and I'm just here to comment and come along with him on this road.
Yeah,
He's
no,
going to fact check me.
Yeah, well, there you
All
go.
right.
Yeah, you have your own fact
So,
checker now.
all right.
You don't
Well,
rely on us.
tonight's show,
You
we're
never
going
get
to.
fact checked by bar people, so you always want to make sure you have somebody that's actually a legit historian doing it. And for those of you who don't know this, guys, Nodier has a channel on Instagram, on Facebook. I believe you have it on X as well, right?
Yeah, I have X, and recently I have opened my YouTube channel.
Oh, beautiful.
I'm moving to create short videos, like 2-3 minutes videos, since last week. So I'm starting to upload content and
Awesome.
on YouTube as well. Yeah.
Oh, that'd be great. Well, let us know what the YouTube channel is and everything else. We'll be happy to help you with that any way you can. But Noyer is a avid Panama Railroad historian and fan. He grew up basically on the railroad. His mom worked out in Barrio Colorado on the island out there, and so part of her commute every day was to get on the train in Panama at the station there in Ancon and ride out just past Gamboa. Right? Is that where she would get off to?
Yeah, she will get off on Frijoles. And fun fact, both of my parents used to work in Barrio Colorado. So yeah, both of them took the train from either Ancon or Balboa station up to Frijoles every single day.
That's awesome. What a great commute to have in his own. So, but anyway, so Dave, the floor is yours. Go ahead and give us some.
Okay.
Some
All right. Well,
around
tonight's
Panama.
segment, it's going to be really a memorial to the builders of the Panama Railroad and its American influence in Panama. You know, not only the railroad, the title of this session is called The Iron Link, which are the railroad um, um, ties. I mean, not the ties, but the railroad itself made out of iron. The Panama Railroad in the city. And this is a cartographic history. So that means maps. I'm a map guy. I'm a geographer major and city planner. I'm not a historian, but I look at these maps and I learn the
This one
history.
on Friday nights.
All right. So, and without the Panama Railroad, the Panama Canal may not have ever happened. And I'm not just talking about the iron part. It's the workers that worked on the Panama Canal and their influence on getting Panama actually selected as the canal route, because you know that the U.S. was thinking about building the canal in Nicaragua, and someone had to change a mind to move it to Panama. And you know, we learned that Dr. Amador worked for the Panama Railroad as a physician. We're going to learn about tonight from Mr. Cromwell, that was an attorney, financier for the Panama Railroad and Panama government. And so, you know, without these people and the Panama Canal may not have happened in Panama.
Interesting.
So, and it's when you go and look at these old maps in particular, you can really see just how compact Panama City was at that time, and then the big influence that the railroad had. And we're going to start off with a story about
Cromwell.
how the railroad basically was a reawakening of Panama City after Henry Morgan burned down old Panama, and Panama City moved to its new location. Um, there really wasn't a whole lot going on in that area for about 180 years. You know, it kind of lost its importance, and so the railroad comes in, and you know, that's a pivot point. Everything starts to change, and right at that time is the gold rush, and so things are really changing overnight. So in 1850, there was no cologne at that time. There was a man by the name of Chauncey that bought all the real estate along the Atlantic coast except um, the island that Cologne is on. It was just a mangrove swamp. It was like useless, so he didn't buy that. And there was little economic activity going on in Panama at that time. And there was a man by the name of Tracy Robinson. He worked for the Panama Canal Railroad for 46.
I think we lost them.
I think we lost Dave. Yeah.
Yep. So you were saying that if Manzanillo is that island that you're talking about, right?
Yes. So Manzanillo was an island, and it was not connected to the mainland. It was connected while the railroad was built. It was all swampy, and it had it was a bad place for building anything. But these guys were really up to this game. And
all right, I'm back.
Oh, he's back. Yeah, he's back.
Hey, welcome back.
I don't know what happened.
Yeah, we missed you.
I don't know where'd you last hear me at, Mr. Tracy Robinson?
Yes.
He worked.
Right.
He worked for the Panama Railroad for 46 years, from 1861 to 1907.
Wow.
And he wrote a book. It was published by the Star and Herald Company. Ever heard of Star and Herald?
Yeah.
And in 1907, and he describes that before Mr. Aspinwall could build his railway, he needed to find an Atlantic terminal or beginning point. I mean, if you're on the Atlantic side, I guess it's the beginning, and if you're on the Pacific side, it's the end, right? But back in those days, the Camino Real that went over from Portobello hadn't been in use for decades or centuries, and it was in very disrepair. So what travelers would do, is they would come on steamboat and they'd stop at the Chagres River,
right?
And they would take a bungo or a steamboat over to Gorgona or Cruces, which is about where Gamboa is.
Right.
Do you know what town they used to call that area in Chagres where the people used to get off the boat?
La Boca.
La Boca. No, it's on the Atlantic side at Chagres River, and where Fort San Lorenzo is. The mouth of the river there.
Yeah, there was a town there. And I did see, it was just coincidentally, I was looking at CZ images the other night, and they have an image there of that little town and just the church, which is kind of prominent for little. I mean, really, you can hardly even call it a town. It was like a village.
Yeah, right.
But
it was called Yankee Town, is what they called it.
Yes, that's
right.
right.
All the Yankees came. But basically, it was a temporary town. Basically, we get hundreds and thousands of people coming off these boats, and it was just things were set up. They're kind of ad hoc.
Yeah.
And what had happened is that there was no other land on the Atlantic coast except this island. So that's where Aspinwall started building his railroad. So basically, he started building the railroad in the swamp. And about that time, some of the steamships were coming in, and there was some bad weather, and they couldn't unload. And so they went into Navy Bay or Limon Bay and disembarked there. And this was about 1852. And by that time, the railroad had built all the way to Gatun, about 7 miles. And so the passengers took the train to Gatun and then got on the boat and went, the rest of the journey.
How about that?
And so then basically they moved the terminal over to Cologne because they didn't need that extra step anymore. So that's how Cologne got its start. And this gentleman said that at that time Panama City was harder to get to than getting to Tibet. I mean, it was so isolated. You the only way to get there was 4 days on a steamboat, and then when you got to Cruces, you either had to take a camel or a mule.
Incredible. And to think that it's challenging in the 1850s to do it. Imagine what the Spaniards were going through 300 years before that.
Yeah, well, they spent a lot of money on that rock road.
Yeah,
and the mules could do that, but the road had gotten such bad condition, the mules couldn't really traverse on that anymore. Right. And so they even brought in 1852. They brought in or 1851. They brought in some camels, but that didn't really work out so well.
I mean, I guess we're talking about almost 150 years of deterioration, right? You think about the Spanish Empire, and that stuff ended in the 1600s, and now you're talking 200 years later where we start accessing it again.
Well, 1671 is when Henry Morgan attacked,
right?
And so after that,
you're going almost 200 years.
Every time the gold went over, they were subject to it, and I guess by around that time too, the gold was starting to peter out from Peru. But So there's just some of the things that are going on, and then let's see what else I got going. So let's move on to the next one. Next slide here. So Mr. George Totten have you ever heard of him?
George Totten. No.
All right. Well,
I've heard of
George
George
Totten, he
Totten.
was the chief engineer of the Panama Railroad from 1850 to 1875.
Okay.
I'm getting some prompts on this thing.
And there's no like Totten Town or Totten Road. Poor guy.
But I think if you take the DC Metro, there's a Totten station. I don't know if they're related or not, but so that's how I've heard about him. But I don't know if it's the same guy. But yeah, you don't hear anything about him. But he
No.
was the engineer, 1875, and in 1852, just 2 years after he started, he lost 51 of his surveyors, his engineers, and draftsmen and stuff like that to cholera. So almost his entire staff
That's crazy.
died in yellow fever, and he got sick with yellow fever. And his colleagues, they bought him a casket, and this is
Hey, we're pulling
1852.
for you, man, but not
But
by a
he pulled through and made it. And then the Panama Railroad finally was completed in 1855. The date was January 27th at
And they must have
midnight.
had to have paid people really well to go down there, man, because I mean, it was almost a death sentence to go down there.
Yeah, and that was the reputation of it too.
That's what I'm saying.
It was, especially back in those days, because no one knew about
A
malaria
lot of
and
money
yellow
to go down
fever.
there, knowing what they know.
Yeah, I mean, it really was, and and that's kind of why I want to dedicate some of this show tonight to the cemeteries, is because there was a lot of death, and
Yeah, no
it's
kidding. A lot
kind
of
of morbid, but a lot of people gave their lives
Yeah.
to make this happen. But the meeting of the railroad, kind of like the transcontinental that we see at Promontory Point, happened at Summit, which was the highest point of the railroad, and that's kind of near Culebra, where the two steam shovels met at the bottom.
Huh.
So it's kind of
Interesting
interesting
timing.
that was the area. But it was midnight on the 27th of January, and then the first train made the transatlantic trip on the 28th, the next day.
That's
So
amazing.
January 28th, 1855 is when that line was successful, completed. And one of the things too that Totten did when he worked for Panama Railroad in 1857, he surveyed a canal route, and he proposed a canal route. And 1852 was also the year that Ulysses S. Grant crossed over the isthmus with his troops, and they got cholera, and he lost about 180 men on that trip.
Sure.
And then and in 1879, de Lesseps hired him to be the chief of engineers for his canal. And he was the only American engineer that worked for the French company. But he left a year later, in 1880.
He probably started realizing quickly that I think it, for somebody like him, it probably didn't take long to realize, wow, dude, you're approaching this like Egypt. Not going to work. There's no way this is going to work. You have no idea what you're getting yourself into.
But I thought it was kind of interesting that, Totten, never heard of him. Never, ever hear of him.
Yeah.
I mean,
and
you'll
so
see
prominent of a person.
Yeah, if you go on the Panama Railroad site, you'll read about it. But in Canal Zone history, American history, and stuff,
how about that?
You don't really hear it. And the other thing that it did is that trip across the isthmus went from being at least 4 days to 6 hours.
Okay, interesting.
All right. So Nadia, am I correct?
Yes, you are.
All right.
4 days to cross the isthmus.
All right.
That must have been
So then,
treacherous.
so when travelers reach Panama City, they would get on a steamship from the Pacific Mail Steamship Company wharf, and then they'd head to San Francisco. But sometimes the travelers had to wait about 3 months to get on a steamship because there was more people than there was steamships.
That's
and maybe Nodia, you can talk about it in your segment about watermelon riot.
Right.
Have you guys heard about the watermelon riot?
We have not.
All right.
I think you probably had mentioned it once because that kind of sounds familiar.
Yeah, we've a lot of these things we
never heard
mentioned
about
in
that?
passing, and that's the thing is that there's just so much history.
Yeah.
Any one of them we could take a whole show on.
Yes,
but,
absolutely. That's
and
why we're
do.
2 years deep and
Yeah,
easily
and that's why
2
we
more
go
to go.
an hour and change on these things. But but without the Panama Railroad and its administration, including Mr. Totten, and then also this other gentleman, Mr. William Nelson Cromwell, who was hired as a financier. The new Panama Canal Company hired him. You know, the Panama Canal Company, they were registered in New York, even though they're a French company. He was a high powered lawyer, influencer up there. You know, he handled all the big finance deals. He dealt with a lot of bankruptcies and failed businesses and stuff like that. And then he was also general counsel for the Panama Railroad because the French company, when they bought it, the Panama Railroad came with it. So that's another name that you never really hear of. But he had a whole lot to do with the the independence of Panama.
I always find that interesting how that played out. And Noyer, maybe you can even share some insight on that. How it is that the French come in and cut a deal to build a canal there, and the Panama Railroad gets included in that package, because at that point the Panama Railroad was still one of the most valuable companies in the world, and I'm not sure that as an American I'd want to let go of that, because y'all want to build a canal. So maybe you can shed some light on that. That'd be interesting to see how that played out.
Well, I think that the concession was done with the Colombians at that moment, and it had included that if you're going to build a canal through Panama, you have to use the railroad for that. So that's why it was included in
interesting
in the contract as well. Yeah.
Okay, and I would imagine even for the initial contract for the road, that was probably stipulated that, hey, we reserve the right to do something with this road down the road under favorable terms.
And actually, the original treaty with Colombia, it was New Granada by that time.
Right.
They had a clause there that no one else could try to do a canal through Panama without first talking to the Panama Railroad Company. So
Isn't that interesting? Wow.
I think it was on that relation.
That makes sense. Interesting.
Yeah, there were all types of stipulations in that concession that New Granada gave to the Panama Railroad. We've talked about before where they were supposed to build the railroad all the way out to Naos Island.
Correct.
And build it.
Cost them what, $10 million back there for not doing it?
It was $200,000 a year that they had to pay. But the Panama Railroad was the most successful company on the New York stock market at that time. I mean,
they're willing to pay that fine and not do that because they're making. It's kind of funny that Michael Jordan movie that came out recently, and when they were making his shoe. And there was a problem with the red and black shoe, and they're like, wait a minute, the NBA has strict rules; they have to be all white. And then what are you going to do? They said, we'll just pay the fine, $5,000 a day. And they were like, we're going to make so much money, we're glad to pay that fine.
Yeah, exactly.
Same thing here.
And Dave, if you allow me, do you know why it was so successful at that moment? It was $25 per ticket to cross the Panama Isthmus using the Panama Railroad. And do you know why?
The gold rush.
The gold rush, exactly. People were coming in with pockets full of gold.
But that was $25 then, right? Not $25 today.
Yeah. That's we've talked about this before. It's like $3,000.
Yeah, it's like $3,000 today to cross. Yes,
but they also had to pay for the value of the gold.
Correct. Right.
Yeah. So all that stuff, the weight of it was charged.
Yeah.
They were making so much money.
Yeah, they were printing money, man.
All right. Absolutely. Well, but this William Nelson Cromwell guy, he was involved in some questionable deeds. The word that they used was skullduggery.
Okay.
Now, I don't know. I've never been called a skullduggerer before, but that doesn't sound good.
No? Oh my God. They call Willie that all the time.
My badge of honor in some neighborhoods.
He was a high-powered attorney in a high-powered company. It still exists. It's one of the top 3 to 5 um, law firms in New York City today. So I'm going to be really careful what I say about this man.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was very accomplished, but and I think one of the things I read is that he didn't go to jail, but but he probably could have. But it's like, I guess, legal maneuvering like nobody has
Sure.
never seen.
Right.
And
Loopholes.
when it comes down to like all these contracts in the stocks and all that, I want to do a forensic audit about where that money went to. And I think it would be really amazing. I'll tell you when we get to it. I'll tell you what he was accused of doing back in 1936 by the Panamanians. So because he lived to 1948. This guy, he
Wow.
lived to 94 years old.
Man.
All right. So but we never heard that name, William Nelson Cromwell, in Canal Zone.
No.
But without him, that canal probably would have been in Nicaragua.
Yep.
And of course, Buenaventura, we've heard his story, but we don't really hear Cromwell's story. And the two were linked to some degree. Of course, since he worked for the Panama Railroad and the Panama Canal Company, he worked for Buenaventura.
So what if it was in Managua? If they do a canal there instead, we're not hanging out at the yacht at the yacht club. We're not hanging out at the causeway. What are we hanging out at? The volcano there on the lake?
We're not, because there's no locks. The ships are just going through.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's right. There
Same with the sea level canal in Panama. If that has been sea level canal, we wouldn't be talking.
Well, then I drink to Mr. Cromwell. Right on, brother. Well done.
Yeah, there's been some great people that have really made this happen.
My book.
So let's keep on going. So one of the things that we'll talk about Cromwell. We'll talk about the cemeteries, and then we'll also talk about some old Panama. Nodair is going to talk about the station in Panama City, and then if there's time, I'll talk about some of the old photos I found of old Casco Viejo.
Nice.
But upon the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad, all of a sudden you got this railroad station right at the foot of Panama City, and thousands of people are coming there, and
you could say that was at the foothills of Ancon, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And, basically what we know of Panama City, Chorrillo, and where Nápoles is, and then Caledonia along the coast and all that area. We've always known it as being built up, but at that time, and we'll show you, it was pretty sparse. And then I'll talk about the landowners around Panama City and how many of them were American, and most of them were Mr. Cromwell. And then just how does that all play in?
I love it.
And let's see what else. So we'll zoom in and look at some of these properties and what they were used for at the time. Maybe you'll recognize some of the areas,
Sure.
and maybe you'll probably be really surprised how there was nothing there. So we got this slide up here now. I guess it's what slide is this? 6.
I think this is the one that's got the pivot point.
Okay, so we'll keep on going then to 2 more. Which one? The next one.
Okay.
So this is the area that we're going to be looking at tonight, and on the bottom left, you can see where Panama City Casco Viejo is, and there's a moat around that. It was basically a fortress with a moat, and then you look around that area. Right in the center is where the Panama Railroad Station drops into Panama City,
and that's the beginning of Avenida Balboa in today's Panama, correct?
Avenida Balboa would have, the railroad tracks are crossing over it.
That's what I'm saying, but that's where it started, in that area there.
So we're going to focus in on this and show you what's going on in more detail, because it's kind of hard to see at this scale. But we'll see that there's a lot of haciendas and American ownership in some of these areas. So we'll keep on going. So let's go on to the next slide.
Okay.
And so, if you go into Casco Viejo, it was originally built after Morgan torched Old Panama.
Right.
And so they built this fortress, and they put a moat around it. And I never knew until recently that it had a moat.
Right.
Until I saw these maps, and there's couple others that show the moat around there. and if you go down there around 11th calle 11th Street and like Plaza Herrera, you can see the old ramparts.
Wall.
The wall is
Yeah.
there, and that used to be the outside of the moat. And
So
you
now,
can
did
look
they
in the
just cover
road, and
up
you
the
can
whole
see.
moat, or is there still something underground there that would, you know?
It looks like it's all been filled in.
Okay.
Yeah, and if you look at some of the aerials, like where it comes, where the moat would have been, where it matches up to the bay there,
Right.
it's green. So like they didn't put a building on it. There's
Right.
trees
Okay.
there.
You can see the pattern where it used to run.
Yeah, I mean, so you kind of when you look at it, you can say, okay, that's what that used to be.
Oh, that's
And
cool.
then if you go in some of the other areas, you can see where they cut the wall down, and they've fortunately haven't put asphalt over it, so you can see like now you're driving over what used to be the wall. They cut the wall down,
Right.
and then you
Right.
can drive over it and see.
And
You can
and,
see these things.
and just to add on that,
Hey, Daniel.
that exact part of the city then became the limits between the corregimientos Santana and San Felipe, which is the Casco Viejo.
Ah,
So,
okay.
so this area, this right here, where you see this, the streets that are right in the path of where the wall was.
Right.
It became the limits between the two neighborhoods.
Interesting.
Right.
Very interesting.
So, so I guess they put this moat around it because after the
Sure.
Spanish got attacked, they're like, we're not taking any chances. We're gonna we're gonna build a fortified city, and then right outside the wall, I think what Nodier was saying, right outside the wall, they had an area called the Esplanade, and then
Okay.
further on the Faubourg,
Okay.
and then Santa Ana Plaza and stuff like that. And we'll teach you some French words
Right on.
in a minute. So do you have any idea what a Faubourg is?
I was just gonna ask.
You can see it at the top of the graphic there. Kind of, you can see the letters.
Faubourg sounds like
going up.
foosball.
Faubourg. It means suburb.
Suburb expanding beyond the
Suburb,
safety of the
yeah.
wall. Ah, okay. So that's for the
Alright.
brave people, the
Yeah.
frontiers.
And Esplanade, Esplanade is a flat area between, like near the sea, where people could walk. And I know, like in Italy, after dinner, you go for a stroll after dinner. In other places they call it like a promenade and stuff, where people
Okay, right on.
could be walking. So I don't know that was ever one of those areas, if it was ever finished, but that on
There are
this
some
map, that's what they
pictures-
called it, the Esplanade.
When you mentioned that, Dave, there are some pictures of that Casco Viejo area right along the water there, where you have that kind of that low wall and a long sidewalk, which kind of sounds like it would be that type of Esplanade walking area. And the only thing you have is the ocean at that point to look out
And
to.
it could be back in those days, if the all clear sign was out and you weren't locked in the fortress, you could go
Right.
outside and walk around,
Sure.
stretch your legs. Otherwise, you're kind of cramped in a city with no open spaces.
No kidding.
And
there was
of course, inside the city, you will have the rich people, the wealthy people.
Mhm.
And then
Sure.
outside of the city, you
Yeah.
will have the people who work for the wealth people
Yeah,
inside.
the affordable housing outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
Yeah. And in England's times, they called them the serfs, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So those are just things that, back in those days, that's what that was called. You had the city where, the rich people lived, and then you had places outside the city where the workers were.
Yeah.
And so on this map, then it also shows Santa Ana Plaza. If you're not familiar with that,
Mhm.
we'll focus in on that in a little bit.
There's a lot of history to that plaza.
Oh yeah, and that's probably it's a show itself. We'll just get the
Yeah,
30-second version on it. But so let's go to the next slide. So that's Santa Ana Plaza. I saw this picture. I'm like, holy crap, that
Wow.
looks beautiful. I've never seen it look like that. That must be some AI or something like that.
Right.
But I remember that's where the lottery used to be
Yes.
done. The little.
No, I don't think it's AI. I think it
looks like a
looks like
painting.
that right now. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, that is fantastic area. I need next time I go down there, I got to make sure I go see that, because
Right.
you never see that in travel posters and all that other stuff.
No.
I mean, that looks like France or someplace. I mean,
Okay.
it's beautiful. The banyan trees there, or the ficus trees, and I'm gonna
is that a
take a
banyan
chance there and
tree?
go down there.
That's
All right, so I just had to show that. All right, the next one. So Cromwell, this guy that he worked for the Panama Railroad, he was a land baron essentially. He owned a lot of land, and you've got to think that this guy knew the railroad was coming and all that stuff. He probably went and bought it all.
Heck
So
yeah, he did. He ain't no
I'd
fool.
really like to know when he purchased this land, and like this guy Chauncey on the Atlantic side bought all the land on the coast.
Right.
So if you want to deal with it, hey, it's monopoly, right? You had to come through me. And then when he sold it, because he lived until 1948,
Right.
and a lot of Panama City was built by then. But
And I would think that the eventually, especially after the gold rush really kicked in, and now you had a lot of people that were finding their wealth and their fortunes that coming back down and going the other direction. Now you're touching the Pacific side first with all this money, so you probably had bigger property values. You probably had better storefronts there because you didn't have people that were hoping to gain a fortune. You had people coming back with a lot of money now, and so the first place they're going to spend it is right there in Panama City.
Yep.
I mean, those merchants probably made a bundle of money there.
All right. So he was known as the fixer, but he also had a lot of land. He doesn't get a lot of attention in Canal Zone history, at least not the stuff that I've heard. But he was a big influencer in the U.S. Congress. He was friends with Taft. He had the ear of Roosevelt. He was made the like the financier of the Republican Party. Um, he knew where the money was, and he had connections for years.
The first influencer.
First influencer. I don't know if he was the
And
first,
remind us why he's infamous and not famous. Why they give him the infamous?
Well, since I was going to talk about it later, but
Okay.
he
He was an opportunist.
apparently he was accused of the panel that he worked for the French company, Canal Company, and they're going through bankruptcy, and then he's negotiating with U.S. like Senator Hanna in the United States to change his mind to vote for Panama instead of Nicaragua, and all of a sudden it changes and he's going there. But then we had talked about how the French company wanted like $100 million, and Colombia was only going to ask for 40 million, and so the French company was told, if you offer 40 million, the Senate would probably approve it. So they changed it to 40, and that's what got agreed to. But what is alleged is that like for the bankruptcy that they were going through, like the debts were only 16 million.
So he inflated them.
Yeah, so they got 40 million, and so they paid 40 million for $16 million investment. But we've talked about how much the U.S. got out of that as well. So maybe it was fair, but part of it too is that he probably was a major stockholder.
Oh, I'm sure.
He got paid $2.8 million for that transfer deal of that $40 million. And he got $2.8 million from it. And the French company didn't even balk because they probably realized we weren't going to get anything.
Right.
But $2.8 million in 1903.
Yeah, he's sitting pretty.
Yeah, so that's why. And then Panama is part of the treaty. Got $6 million like up front.
Yeah,
and he was like a financier consultant for Panama, and he invested it in New York real estate, stock market, and was supposed to pay like 5.5%. And in 1936, he got investigated, and all I can find is that it said that the Panamanians accused him of being lax, and I could never find out what actually happened. But part of it. But in the investigation, he goes, before the Senate and stuff, and he basically pleads the fifth. It's attorney-client privilege. So he's the businessman and the attorney and the financier. So I can't tell you. So was there a crime? I can't tell you. There's client privilege. So it's just that's why he's infamous, is because he probably bilked people out of a lot of money legally.
Yeah, and like it says in the quote there, he declined to answer.
I declined to answer, and you can you read the transcript of this hearing, and it's like I declined. I beg not to answer. I mean, like I declined to answer. It's like, and it's it was pretty rough. But he
I
paid the right.
imagine
It's
it's hard to.
he had friends with the right people. He was a smart
Sure.
man, and
And it's probably very difficult back then to prove stuff like that to begin with, and then you're talking about stuff in a foreign country.
yeah, there's no electronics.
Forget about it, man. This guy,
No electronics. Right.
hence the reason he's posing like that. He's like, whatever, dude. It's gonna be all good. He don't look a bit worried at all. He looks like an influencer in that picture.
But he died, and he gave his money away to a bunch of public purposes, and he was big into promoting blind veterans from World War One, and also like he won Helen Keller Society Award and stuff like that. So he was a philanthropist. So he gave his money away.
Good for him. That's better.
But he was
how we got his money.
Anyway, so we'll go on to the next one.
Yep. So here's some maps, and his name keeps popping up. It seems.
All right. So yeah. So he's everywhere, and so we're going to go look at some of these areas that he.
How about in Panama history? I've never heard of him. His name in Panama history.
Yeah. So if you don't have this map, and this map was actually drawn by George Totten, this 1857 map.
Yeah.
All right. So let's zoom in and go to the next one. So this area is okay. If you're coming from Balboa Road, it's called La Boca Road, and you come up to where the checkpoint was, and then if you go straight, you're going into Chorrillo. If you go, on this map, left, you'd be going to the bridge, and right, you'd be going to Napoli. Straight ahead, you'd be going to Balboa. Down, you'd be going to Casco Viejo, right? Okay. Do you understand where we're at?
Yes.
So this is pointing south. Then, like you're facing south, or we are facing north.
South would be at the bottom. Well, I don't know.
Okay. So it is oriented.
I don't know if it's south actually, but Old Panama or Casco Viejo would be down below. You'd take there'd be like Avenida Bay going down.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha. Okay.
And then, but all that area you can see on the left side was owned by William Nelson.
This guy.
Esquire. And then right at the base there, at the foot of go back. The foot of the hill. It was called El Chorrillo, and it says it was a spring.
Mm-hmm.
That's where people got their fresh water. And then off to the left there, it says washing area. So that's where they wash their clothes. So I think that's about the area where they had the slip ramp that goes into La Boca Road. But at that point, that's where people got their water, and that's why it's called El Chorrillo. That was, right. And Ricky, I think it's spelled with one R on this map, so they probably called it Chorrillo.
Chorrillo, yeah. You mean one L?
The two R's, so then we can say the Chorrillo.
Okay,
but all right.
There you go. Look,
so it'll be Chorrillo without the Cho would be the
All right. So then this is going south, below where we just were.
Right.
So this is like Avenida Bay going down, and then you can see on the bottom the cemetery that was there, and you can see that this land was owned by the Panama Railroad Company. Now, why the heck would the Panama Railroad need the land way over there? But anyway, they own that land. There's a big parcel there.
Well, you got to remember, these guys want to get as close to the ocean as they can because,
And then on the other side of the street, look who owns the land.
There you go.
William Nelson. Right. So all that Chorrillo area was owned by Panama Railroad and William Nelson.
The gringos. Now, we got a question here for Mr.
Coincidentally, he's the attorney for the railroad, too.
Yeah, right. So the next one.
Did ships dock in Panama City, or did they have to anchor offshore?
Yeah, they have to anchor over Naos.
Yep.
And then they took little boats to get into the city.
Understood.
Yeah, all that area. Remember, those were all tidal flats.
We have some photos of that. So
yeah.
All right. So next one. Okay, so this is going even further south. Just south of that cemetery, and you can see William Nelson owns that property. And then but it's also said that it was sold by a Dr. Ciotti. And I don't know if you know Juan Ciotti. I went to school with Juan and played baseball with him. I asked him if that's a relative, and he's checking in on it. Maybe it's a great great grandfather.
Could be.
But and then on the other side, there was a cocoa grove.
Okay.
So that other part of Chorrillo, they had cocoa trees and stuff like that. Never knew that. When you go by there, you kind of just drive as fast as you can, right?
Right.
You don't really
You'll stop
stop.
and admire the scenery.
But
I
that's what
wonder
was
why.
going on there. I mean, it was all of this was pretty much vacant land
Yeah.
with not a whole lot in that area in 1857.
Wow.
All right, so go on the next one. And then going even further south, I can't really read these.
Got fruit trees.
Fruit trees, and then
Juan Perez is the.
then it says hospital on the bottom.
Yeah.
But you can see William Nelson owns that land there too.
Shocker.
Yeah. All right. Next.
Billy Ann owns it all.
All right. And so then when you get down past the hospital, this street that came across, it's like does it say Via de la Pescadores?
Yep.
So that's what you were saying, the people that worked, like the fishermen probably lived on this street, and it goes right down to the water right there. And then you can see where it says Faubourg
Yeah, that's right.
of Santa Ana. That means the suburbs, and you can see that there's some buildings there. So that's probably where people lived. And also this area, Chorrillo, when it was built, a lot of the canal construction laborers lived in this area.
Okay, interesting.
And so, it kind of has some canal history in that regards, but it wasn't, a gold town that we all know, right? So
Right. This was Panama.
And then some other highlights. This is going further south. We get to the top of the moat there of the city, and you can see off to the left they had the slaughterhouse, and then below that there was an old army barracks. And so when you hear about the Colombian army and those types of things, they probably had their barracks right outside the gate and stuff. And then there was a cattle pen, and then Plaza Santa Ana, and then right below Plaza Santa Ana, another piece of land that was owned by Cromwell. And so basically, he seemed to pick up every parcel of land that didn't have something on it.
He knew what was coming.
Yep. All right, next one.
For housing labor, yeah, they were absolutely.
All right, so then this is going a little bit to the to the west or the east of
yes, correct.
And you can there's this area. It's called La Cienega. You have any idea what that means?
Couldn't tell you.
I think it means like swampy area.
Swampy area, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the other area, the bigger part, is where the Panama Railroad station.
Yeah.
Came to the coast, and then they had the railroad track. And this is why I invited Nodier to come talk about what was going on there. So let's go on to the next one. Oh, I know, Playa Prieta. They call this area Playa Prieta, and I was wondering, is it still around? I've never heard that. Never heard it called that.
Mm-hmm. Isn't that the one they just cleaned up recently?
No, it's not. It's not the same.
Okay.
So when I Googled it, and there's just that one little triangle area right by the base of Casco Viejo that's labeled Playa Prieta, and there's a little sand beach there.
Yeah.
Well, that's the one Meyer and the first lady just cleaned up.
That's what I was asking. But
no, the next one.
It's not the same one. Yeah, it looks like it, but it's not.
Oh, it's not.
The next
no,
one.
The new one it's all in the other side of Casco Viejo.
Oh, okay. I mean, it does look almost identical.
I know, but
you're right, because you can see the Presidencia really from the other one.
I was like, holy cow! I didn't ever realize they have like white sand beach.
Yeah, I heard there's like 7 beaches in Casco Viejo.
Yeah.
All right. So next one.
Playa Prieta used to cover all the way.
All of it.
Yeah, all that part.
All along Balboa.
That's that highway that goes around the outside of the water
yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can see all pictures of people swimming there.
Yeah, no kidding.
And so this is another picture of that area. To me, that reminds me of Amador Beach
What a kind of
without without a shark net. All right, next
Yeah.
one.
yeah.
And also
And
Playa
they have buildings
Prieta.
in the back.
And Playa Prieta means like black beach.
Yeah, Black Beach.
Like,
Prieta.
yeah.
Okay.
Prieta,
Right
yeah.
on.
Prieta is black, like
Mhm.
Yes.
like a black person. Yeah.
Right.
All right, and then this is looking the other way. And
That's looking
then
towards Paitia.
Baitia, yeah. And then the next one, you can actually see through the water. I'm like,
Wow, that's
That's-
interesting.
Well, they're cleaning it up. That's for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
They've been doing it for
Yeah.
a couple years now.
so the next time I go there, I'll find that little beach and go check it out. I mean,
Yeah,
I didn't know it was there, and
Yeah,
just one of those hidden areas of Panama
yeah.
that we didn't know. But that whole area that's actually probably Costa Cintera that you see there.
So Dodge mentioning about the Chiari family was all about Estrella Azul Dairy, but not sure if they're related. Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it would make sense because
Yeah.
you'd have to be a landowner, and that wouldn't make
All
sense
right.
to go
All
to
right.
that.
So there's just a little thing, but the whole area is called Playa Prieta, and that's so we'll see some old pictures later on. All right. So this is, and then going beyond that, where the station was, another piece of land that was owned by Cromwell, and this area, it's like a little spit of land, and it
Palm
had
Beach.
Coconut Grove, Palm Beach, the last coconut
Go
tree.
surfing in Mahone Beach.
Could you imagine if that had the white sand beach and coconut palms? What that would look like today?
Yeah, right.
It's like, I don't know what it looked like back then, but I lived in Florida for a while, and I just think, oh, maybe it looked like one of those.
What up, Matt?
Yeah. All right. Next one.
Okay.
All right. So then this is over. This would be like along 4th of July Avenue between Ancon and where we were at El Chorrillo. So kind of like Ancon Hospital, Herrick Heights area.
Okay.
And so he owned that a big area up there.
Sure.
The next one. And then this is the area that on the left you can see it says like Ancon Road.
Right.
So that would be basically Ancon Road, Gorgas Road that goes up towards Gorgas. And this area here would be like where the lower Ancon is. You got the school, and then you got the old commissary, and then there's some residential housing, and then probably that hill is like Parita Place. It's not Parita Place. I can't remember the name of it now, but like the area that came from the laundromat and then came up to Sacred Heart in that area.
Oh, okay.
The Tivoli Hotel area.
Yeah. Okay. By Frangipani.
Yeah. So this guy, Rand Runnels, owned that area. And Rand Runnels had been a former Texas Ranger that was hired by the Panama Railroad to be basically the law enforcement, and it was called the Isthmian Guard.
Okay.
And he has a history as well.
Man,
he had some bad reputation.
Bad reputation, yeah. But
Another
but he owned a lot of
infamous-
land there. So
he had the guns.
Yeah. What does it say in the box below? I can't see it.
Buy us a beer.
It says the Panama Railroad. Yeah. the Panama Railroad Company.
Panama Railroad Company, yeah.
Oh, because it was owned by the Panama Railroad Company.
Yeah,
I
the
think.
Hacienda of Santa Cruz.
Yeah, so all that area there, which would be like where Fifth of May Plaza is and all that area, that was all owned by Panama Railroad. All right, next one.
But that's interesting. That exact same place it's still called Santa Cruz.
Santa Ana, right? Santa Cruz, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, right. So this is the area that Rand Runnels owned. I couldn't get the AI to match the boundary, but
what's interesting is that here you're obviously we're talking about a part of New Grenada and Colombia, right? There's no Panama yet, but it seems like the Panama Railroad has cut the deal and have access to this area here. They're deciding on law enforcement. They're deciding on these things. So there's really not a lot of infrastructure there. It really is appropriate to call it the Wild West because it seems like, you had to take matters into your own hands as opposed to relying on the local military or government to keep order.
And we talked about that. When you see these old movies about the Wild West, this part of Panama was built at that time. So
Yeah,
there's
makes
a
sense.
lot of similarities that were going on.
Similar culture.
Similar culture.
There is one story about this guy that he once hanged like 7
30.
people in the Plaza de which is right now the Plaza de Francia,
Right.
in front of everyone on a Sunday. So they were going to the church, and they all wake up to see this horror in the streets right when they were going to the church. And
Powerful message.
yeah, it was to send a message about
He was judge, jury, and executioner.
Yeah.
It was a different time.
Yeah,
but that's one of those names that if you read the history, his name comes up, but then you find him on the property map, and he basically owned the area right across the street from Gorgas Hospital where we were born, right?
Wow.
and that part of Ancon. So
and probably you will think that the railroad company paid him in land also.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Or he stole it. Yeah.
Or he stole it. Yeah.
Or stole it. Yeah.
He's the
So
law.
we got the next one. This one is called the Hacienda of Juan Diaz.
Okay.
I've heard that name before.
Yeah.
Juan Diaz.
But Juan Diaz was further east.
And his hacienda is called Curandu.
How about that? That's the first inkling of Corundu.
Yeah, and then all the rest of it: saltwater swamp, mangroves, and then that line that goes through it is the Panama Railroad.
So it seems like Panama City, what we know of today as Panama City, not just Balboa, but Panama City had a lot of reclaimed land. Had to fill in a lot of
a lot of Panama City was swamp as well.
Yeah,
and
that's amazing.
And that's kind of one of reasons why when they went from Old Panama, they went to that location because it was the only dry land between there.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah, it makes sense.
And then you can see where they kind of for 180 years, they just lived in that fort.
Yeah, that was it. That was the entire
and that was
community.
it. And so the people lived there. And so when we talk about, well, why didn't the Panamanians build the Panama Canal? There weren't any.
Yeah, there wasn't. There was really 2 villages.
Right.
Yeah. There wasn't a whole lot of people there.
I was doing some other research recently on the construction of the canal itself, and when you talk about the population of Panama, of Panamanians in 1904, it wasn't more than I think 40,000.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. Total. There was more workers in the canal than there were Panamanians.
The Panamanian person itself was a very small population.
So can you imagine if you lived in Panama City and the railroad came, and then almost immediately, or it already been happening, but you got thousands and thousands of I think there were like 40,000 people a year coming through.
Sure.
Right
looking
outside
for a place
your
to
house.
stay, looking for food. Because it's not like a cruise industry where you got off that train and immediately jumped onto a ship and off you went.
Yeah.
You're going to be there sometimes for weeks, and you got to eat, you got a place to stay, and where did that come from?
All of a sudden you had this train, you're like, what the heck is that? Never seen one of those before. And then you got all these people coming from the United States. It's like, where are these people coming from?
Mm-hmm.
All right, so let's go on down to the next one. Next one is we're coming down the line, and then we get to this bridge, and this is I think they call it the Caledonia Bridge.
Caledonia Bridge, yes.
And then off to the side, there's this area. They call it the college. I don't think that it's a school. And this is why you can't use AI.
Right.
Because I tried it, and they claimed it was like a higher institution of learning. But there was an old stone bridge that was here. And then there was, I think in the 1870s, an uprising. And they had a Gatling gun, and they just like mowed down people from this bridge at one point. So
we wasn't too far from Philip Gamboa's house, apparently.
Yeah. So that that's just right on the border of Canal Zone and Panama that we knew. But back then, it was all lands belonging to Panama Railroad.
Right.
All right. So we'll go on to the next one. And this is kind of the hub area, Playa Prieta and the station, and kind of a outline of where it is. I think now it's kind of the modern day where the Mercado de Moriscos is. I don't know
Sure.
if you've
Yes,
ever
exactly
went
that
down
place.
there before. It's been I don't can't remember how many last years I went down there. It's been decades, but it was this quiet outpost was converted into wharves, piers, and tracks, and all the
It became
thousands of
a
gutter
really
washers
busy
were coming
place.
through. And so this kind of has a map showing kind of what some of the building details, the railroad pier and stuff. And that's why I invited Nodier to come and tell us what he knows about this area and what was going on in this particular area. So I'm going to turn it over to Nodier. We go to the next one, and I call him our expert, Panama Railroad expert.
Can't argue with that.
Yes.
Thank you, Dave.
And
So,
all right,
so if we go back one slide,
sure,
one thing that I would like to mention here is you see that where it says depot, it says new depot.
Mm-hmm.
So probably, and this map is from 1857. So
yeah.
that means that probably they had to redo the station after the watermelon riot that it was in 1856. So
Okay.
so probably you mentioned before that you haven't heard about that riot, right?
Yeah, the watermelon
No,
riot.
no.
What's that all
Actually,
about?
we did. I think we did mention it. Let me take a wild guess. This is the one where an American didn't pay for a watermelon, and then the big melee broke out. Is that right?
That's it. Yeah.
Guns came
Yeah. So
out.
David did. We did talk about that,
Yeah,
David.
Wow, how about
yeah,
that?
yeah, and I think about 18 Americans were killed because there was a train coming into the station right at that moment when all hell broke loose there, and I think that's why 18 Americans were killed and
Mm.
two Panamanians were killed at that
Oh, they
moment.
got
So
hit by the train?
no. I
No.
mean, I mean
Gunshots.
the train were disembarking. People were coming out from the train, and that right at that moment the fighting started. So
Okay.
And that's why there were
yeah,
so many Americans
Interesting.
killed.
Because
yeah,
I'll tell
and
you some.
each of those trains came with 2,000 people. So
Yeah.
there were a lot of
Yeah.
people on those trains.
And 1,900 of them were American. So
Yeah.
and right because of that, that was the first time that the U.S. troops came into Panama and occupied Panamanian land. That was the
So
first
Wow.
time it
yeah.
happened.
So we were up 1-0 then. Right on.
Yeah, yeah. You
That's
can go
funny.
to the next one then. Will. So this one, I'm not 100% sure because I'm not familiar with the layout here. But according to Dave, this is part of the Panama Railroad Yard during the first period of the railroad. So
Okay.
in the and some clues that gave out the location here is that on the top of the photo we can see the cathedral bells.
Yeah, the two towers.
Yes, and that's from Casco Viejo. So maybe this is the
yeah,
original
Sure.
the original train yard that was in the Panama City.
yeah. If you look at the previous map, you can see where this track fans out, and there's like 6 lines,
Right.
and it matches that.
We had one earlier that had a good
Yeah.
slide. But
Yeah,
anyway.
I think I think it's later on. Yeah.
Okay.
So we got
So
others.
yeah, let's go to the next one.
Oh wow, that's a great picture.
So yeah, this is one of my favorite pictures about the Panama Railroad. This is the yard, the Panama Yard. This was part of all the buildings that were part of the railroad in the Pacific
What a beautiful
terminal. I think I've analyzed this picture a lot, and I think this picture is from the 1880s. But that at that moment, the layout was not changed a lot from the original railroad.
right.
So you see there are some arrows that were drawn in on top of the buildings. The one you see the one that says four in the arrow
Um,
on the top right of the picture.
it's
I don't see one
it's
on here.
yeah. No, go back right there. It's very light. It's
Yeah.
on the right
Oh, it's
side.
in
There's a
pencil. Yeah.
white
There's a
building with
number
a curved
4.
Yeah.
top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So
Right here.
I believe that's the passenger station that came
Okay.
all the way to the coast, like to the beach where we mentioned before, the Playa Prieta. I think
Interesting.
that's where the passengers will take the train there.
Yeah, no kidding. That picture does look HD. I mean, it does have some depth to it. It's got some great color to it. And it
Yeah.
certainly encompasses what an 1800s railroad locomotive looks like. You know, it's still
Yeah. So
wow.
this picture was colored using AI. I did put it through an AI just to make it a little bit clearer, and we can
Mhm.
see more details about it. But it's a great photo, and
Yeah.
I've seen this same picture on one of the walls of the ACP library, which was part of the VHS library. So
Mhm.
Oh, right.
if you
Okay.
have if you had the chance to go there once, you can see this exact same picture in a big format right there. It's so
Nice.
great
Yeah,
picture.
everybody that's gone has highly recommended to go
Yeah,
see that library.
yeah. You can go to the next one.
And you can tell real quick here that back then it wasn't like cameras, instant take a picture and it's gone in a second, and everybody's holding that pose and they're all looking that direction. So this is,
Yeah.
probably was a big deal to have somebody down with a camera and get these
Yep.
snapshots back
Yeah.
then.
Indeed. Yeah.
Right.
That's cool. All right, and
So
here's the
so
water line right here.
yeah, this is the other end of that same station. This is a great picture from 1865, and this is where the wharf started for the railroad itself. When it was a freight train, it went all the way to the end of the pier right here. So
Interesting.
inside those roofing structures, you will have railroad tracks,
Yeah,
and the
interesting.
passenger station would be the one that is right at the um,
So,
right end of the picture.
yeah, right on the
Right
right
end,
hand side there.
yeah, where you see all these people getting into the building. I
Yeah.
believe that will be the entrance, the main entrance of the station.
And what's interesting also in this picture, you can see, you can sort of see it on the left side there, the two towers of the cathedral, the bells
Yes.
there, and we can go back to this one we were just talking about just a moment ago, and there they are over there. So you can
Right.
kind of see how the rail line starts to bend over to the left there, and then comes in front
Yeah.
of these later on here, which is
Yep.
gives it a great perspective.
Yeah, you kind of think that it's going to go like directly south, but it kind of angles and is
Yes,
looking right at Costco Viejo area.
sure does, sure
Yep.
does.
And then the building that is on the center, if you go back one slide, if the building in the center, that will be the offices for the railroad.
Okay, that
It's
pinkish orangish looking one.
yes,
Okay,
and it has a big sign in there that it says Panama Railroad offices.
nice, right on. That's some expensive company there.
Yeah.
And here's a
So
view from the outside.
this one, it's from also the 1880s. This is from the bay itself. That's what you will see if you come from a boat or a ship into the Panama Bay. This is the railroad pier right at the right side of the screen, and then the building in the center of the picture, that will be the passenger station.
Oh yeah, the one with the rounded roof.
Yes,
Right.
the rounded roof, that will be the one, and then the one that is all the way to the left, that will be the offices building.
And interesting here. Eric asked this question earlier about ships docking in there or to anchor offshore. So those barge-looking ships, those are the ones that would transport it then to Naos Islands, which are the Causeway
Yeah.
Islands, and from there, then they put them because all that water there. If you recall, Pacific side, you have about a 20-foot tide difference. So while you may see water there now, there might be other pictures where these boats might be lying on their side because the water has already come out and it's lower tide. So you couldn't have big ships coming all the way to shore on the Pacific side until much later on in the
Yeah, they had to use tenders
yeah,
to
exactly.
unload into smaller ship in these little smaller boats.
Appreciate you.
Hey, thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir. Appreciate you. But
So-
yeah, that's
so
a great
that-
picture.
So that rounded shape building in the center, that will be the one in the map that is called the depot.
Ah, okay, yeah, because you said there's the two of them a little bit offset there, and then you have that center kind of a courtyard looking area there.
Yep.
That's interesting. So that would be this one here. There's that depot there, and then there's the other one on the
Exactly.
left side there.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, very good. Very good. Good perspective. Right on.
So in the next one, so this one, it's a drawing from the 1860s.
Sure.
This will be the a drawing of the same building from the end of the pier itself. So the point of view of this drawing will be very similar to the one that one. Yeah.
Yeah,
Very, very similar. Yeah.
Just much closer. This drawing, the guy's standing right about where the guy in that gray suit there in front of that wagon car is.
Exactly. Yeah.
Is probably where that is.
That's
Yeah,
right.
you can. Yeah.
Look at that. That's amazing. Oh,
Right.
great drawing. That's a great drawing too, man.
So this one right here, this is a picture from Edward Muybridge from 1875.
Wow.
From Ancon Hill.
Ancon Hill for sure.
This was also colorized using AI, so we can see more details about the city itself. And then right where our faces are, Dave and I, that will be the area of the railroad station and railroad buildings. You see the pier that goes all the way to the ocean, and then the railroad tracks right next to them. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can see all the boats out in the
no
in
kidding.
the harbor. Lots
And
of boats.
there is also a great view of Casco Viejo there.
Yeah, no kidding.
I think Dave's have some details about this part of the photo that
Yeah,
are very interesting.
I have some pictures at the end that I wanted to show of Casco Viejo, but one of the things that I learned recently is that if you can see that white tower, the bell towers that we've been talking about, just to the left, closer to the water behind it, you can see another kind of a gray tower rising up, and that was a church tower, much like the one in Old Panama. And that was torn down to make room for the National Theater.
Wow. Okay.
And so I have a photo of that before it was torn down. But I wanted you to see that in this 1875 photo. It shows up there. It's kind of hard to see unless you're looking for it.
Right.
And then it's striking resemblance to the tower in Old Panama that we all know.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding.
And
They modeled it
one
after that.
important fact about this picture is that it will give you a perspective of how small the city was at that time.
Yeah, no kidding.
There was not a lot of houses or developments around the whole city, the whole place itself.
And again, if we recall, we went over this last year. Ancon, the name Ancon, that is a term for, I guess, in essence, like a bluff overlooking the ocean and the water. And that was one of the other reasons why they chose this area here, because you can get up on a hill here and you could see way out in the ocean if anybody's approaching. So you had that ability to protect it, and this gives it a great perspective of why this you can almost even see where you I think where you would see the moat coming in is right where that bay is between the rail pier and Casco Viejo. It has that almost like a 90-degree turn there. That's probably about where that moat starts, right in there.
Probably, yes. Most likely.
That's cool.
And I thought Ancon meant cove. So
no, Ancon is a mountain bluff that overlooks an area or town.
So, and then on the Totten map, all this area here would be like a Hacienda Santa Ana.
Yeah.
And then it would be labeled like Stone House. So this house here on the left, it probably shows up on that map listed as like a stone house, and sometimes the paths and stuff like that.
And I'm sure in one of those houses at any point in time, you'd have an old crotchety old man named Cromwell come out going, "Get off my land!" And you probably own about half of that shit out there. But
well, actually, on this picture on the left, it's kind of hard to see, but kind of where the pasture land ends, there's a fence, and where all those trees are, that's the property line. So on the left side is Cromwell land, and on the right side is like Hacienda.
Sure,
farmland. Whoever the gentleman's name.
Paris is what I saw on the map.
Yeah,
what's that?
Paris. I saw that on the Paris.
Yeah, Paris. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, something like that. But yeah, you can see these things. So yeah, Muybridge has some fantastic photos.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah,
and they even look better with Nodier's colorization on them.
Right. Oh yeah, gives it perspective.
I remember the first one I saw. I'm like, where did you get that done? All right. Well, thank you. That's why I brought him on, because he knows all that stuff about what was going on in that area, and he shared some great photos.
Sure.
All right.
So now the cemetery here. Let's talk about the cemetery.
All right. Well, Panama Railroad had high high mortality rate.
Yep.
We read it. It was 6,000. It was 10,000. It was 20,000. One report says 81,000.
Wow.
Wow.
That's brutal.
You just don't know.
Yeah,
how many people.
but most commonly they refer to between 12 to 20.
Yeah.
Thousand people. Yeah.
Right. But it's all over the place, depending. And that's why, like, if you go on AI and ask it, you're gonna have to say, whoa, I'm not
Depends
putting
on what day of the week
80,000.
it
I'm
is.
not putting 80,000 people in there. It came up
Yeah.
once on a source.
Yeah, you can check, but you will need to verify it after that.
Yeah. But I don't think anyone disagrees that there was a lot of death.
Yeah, no kidding.
And I think we should recognize all the people that gave their lives for this.
Absolutely.
They probably did it because they were hungry, but we're all reaping the benefits of their sacrifices.
And many nationalities, from Chinese,
Chinese,
to the West Indies,
Irish, Chinese,
no
Jamaican.
Jamaican,
the
lots of
French.
Jamaicans.
There is
But,
said that for every single cross tide of the railroad, there is one person that perished during the construction of the railroad.
Wow.
That's a lot of people.
incredible. That's a lot of people, man.
Yeah.
That gives a perspective there. Sometimes you numbers, you can throw around numbers and stuff. They don't really have a value to them necessarily until you give it something like that to give it a perspective. When you realize you just look down one stretch of railroad and you're like, man, that's a lot right there. And that's just one stretch,
Well, I mean, we're talking about the population of Panama at that time. It's like the whole population of Panama died
twice. If it was the 80,000 number, it would double.
And none of them were Panamanian. Almost, they were all foreigners coming in. A lot of foreigners, but it was a wicked area. But one of the things that when you go into Trujillo, and I used to go down like Orancho or Saranac to buy T-shirts, Panama Bear T-shirts and those types of things. There was always a cemetery that was off in the distance, and sometimes you drive by it and stuff, but you would never stop. And I never realized that in that cemetery were buried, these founders of people that were.
I used to go to that cemetery a lot because my grandmother's buried there.
Yeah, two of my great uncles are buried
My
there.
mom would go there all the time, and it was
But no one
fascinating
ever
to walk around and see that stuff. And I was too young to appreciate the history of who these people are that are laying here, and how far back they went. But
so you can see on this map in here between like where it says Sierra Ancon and the city, you had Chorrillo is listed, and you see cemetery is listed, and you can even see that the moat is on there, and then the railroad's there. But so this is the area where a lot of the workers during that time were buried, in that cemetery that we showed you earlier that the Cromwell owned. They needed more cemetery, so there were other cemeteries that were built around that area. And there's some very notable people that are buried in that area. A lot of them were the Panama Railroad builders. A lot of them were French engineers on the French Canal, and then even Panamanian presidents. Amador is buried there. Porras is buried there, and there's other names, Arango, that you see. You see, a lot of notable people are buried in that area, and it's it's not one of those areas that anyone ever pointed out to me and said, "Hey, let's go pay our respects to some of these people. We really we owe it to them for sticking it out." And
Yep. So the complex itself, it's called Amador Cemetery.
Yeah.
But inside of it, it's divided into 3 different cemeteries.
Yeah. So go to the next one. Go to the next one.
Oh, okay. You're going to talk about it.
Yeah. So this is one of the things too with AI. They called it El Chorrillo Cemetery, but it's actually called Amador Cemetery.
Right.
And it is divided up into different sections, and there is actually called a NECO tour that goes teaches you this stuff. And next time I'm going there, I'm gonna take that tour.
Yeah, me too.
But there's a French section, and there's a Panama Hero section, and then there's Hebrew section, and then next to Amador there's a Chinese section, and so they basically were separated not only by kind of national origin, but also religion.
Mm.
They didn't. They're very different religions in different parts, and part of it too, like with the Chinese, is they use this like a feng shui,
Sure.
model and part of building their things. And so, and also one of the things that comes out is like in French, if you're in Paris, they have the catacombs, and a lot of the bodies are just stacked, and so there's kind of like a different thought on death and how people are treated after death, and it's not the same in every culture. And so when one culture has a way and we don't agree with it, we think it's kind of like the disrespectful. But they had a lot of death, and um, it's there's you read these stories about it, and a lot of people are upset with the way their loved ones were treated, and different people were treated during that time. But I all you can do is read about it and
Correct.
have your own thoughts. But this next photo, we found this is at the cemetery, and it had these vaults, and you can see Ancon Hill in the background.
Yeah.
And for space saving, you would build up and put bodies in these vaults, and so you can see that on there. And so go to the next one. The next one, it has the whether they're the same vaults or similar vaults, but you can see them there. And then the cemeteries, it's got Ancon Cemetery, the French time, 1889.
Right.
And you can see probably doesn't look anything like that now, but at some point there was just crosses with some piled dirt.
Crowds of powder, and just they just numbered. They got a letter and a number, and that's it.
Sure.
I mean,
But probably there were just so many people dying at that time. That's how they
Exactly. Yeah.
by the day.
During the French days, there were a lot of deaths every single day as well. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So next one, I found this image, looking at the Amador Cemetery, and
That's the way I remember it.
and it's like, holy crap! You can see Ancon Hill on the left side there with the tower up there, and it's like, well, that's pretty beautiful. And the angel on there is what a great looking carving and sculpture. And I remember you go to New Orleans, and they have the cemetery tours and stuff like that, and it's like,
yeah,
heck, we had one right in our backyard, and we
Very
never even
historical
went
one.
there.
Yeah.
That's kind of disrespectful.
Probably even older too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and you're just looking at that image, it just kind of peaceful in some regards. And
It's
then
very
like
historical. You see, there's a whole lot of
Yeah.
eras there of different. Like Pat just said, it was interesting what he just threw out there in the comments here. Reminds me that Panama's always been a story of transformation, influenced by powerhouse players, and it has. All the way from the Spaniards, and then everyone else in between, up until
the French,
until now.
Mhm.
It really is.
Yeah.
the
And then
Scottish.
so going over to like the French section, there's a monument to the French, and then on there's like tombstones, and it's different French engineers that are listed in there.
Yeah.
And so just different areas. And then the next one, the tomb for President Amador is there, and that's
George Washington of Panama.
that's quite the tomb there.
Mm-hmm.
I'd never seen that before.
Mausoleum.
Yeah.
You got to go to other countries like Puerto Rico. They're big on that. All their cemeteries are like little buildings like that.
But how many times did we go to El Rancho in Napoli and all that stuff and drive
And
by
we
this
never
place
saw
and
that,
just
right? Yeah.
never even gave it one thought to even go there.
Right.
I mean, that's beautiful.
That's
Well, it is.
disrespectful, I think.
Iconic.
It was like I said, my grandmother's buried there, so my mom would go there all the
Yeah,
time, and I would go
exactly.
as a little kid.
Right.
And it was fascinating, but it didn't have that historical impact that it does now. Knowing what I know now about it.
So then this is the Chinese section. They call it the Weian Cemetery, and I guess I got a Chinese gate going in there. And then
It's kept up as a monument and
go to the next one. You can see that the tombstone's very Chinese
Yep, got the pagoda
looking. It's
style.
very different look from the others.
Uh-huh.
And it one of the first burial places designed in accordance with feng shui and numerology. They're very high, into that. So
Sure.
we bury people a certain way, and other cultures bury. They
Yeah.
have their traditions,
Mm-hmm.
and so if you don't follow their traditions, it's disrespectful for them.
And
so,
one could argue based on that Panama was the first melting pot nation in the world.
It,
Yeah, I
definitely
got
a lot of
little,
people at one time.
Yeah.
I get a little fact here. Where the admin building is, that also was a cemetery.
Yeah, we'll get to that in just.
Oh, you got that? Sorry about that.
All right, so this
I'm getting,
one, this is
I'm getting
basically, I think,
text.
the same vaults. It looks like they're still there.
Oh, yeah.
That we saw on the postcards.
Yeah.
But there's a big wall behind it, so you really wouldn't see it unless you go in there.
Right.
And even this area, you can see it's not quite as upkept as some of the other areas. The grass is kind of tall and stuff like that. And that's another thing. And the next one, this postcard is labeled a Chinese burial, La Boca, Panama. And I suspect that La Boca meant the mouth of the Rio Grande River, not the town that
Could
we
be,
know.
yeah, that makes sense.
And so whether this is in that Chinese cemetery area or not, I would imagine if you went and you've looked for this this monument area, you could confirm or not. But
Interesting.
I just thought it was interesting. It was called La Boca.
Yeah.
And then it was a Chinese burial.
Yeah. You see that comment that HB just put in there? They filmed part of Causa Justa, or Just Cause, in that cemetery. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it makes sense that a lot of cemeteries were in that area.
Yeah. And what's interesting too is that, there's a lot of people, here it looks like they're putting flowers and stuff like that. And I would imagine a lot of people that died in Panama had no family.
Yeah, no kidding.
No family. So they were just a number.
They were just a number.
And it's kind of like, okay, next man up, right?
Yeah, that's it. Pretty much.
We need somebody else. So there wasn't time for and there wasn't anyone to feel sorry for your loss.
Listen to Pat.
All right. So now we're going to go talk about the Ancon Hill.
All right.
All right. So, yeah, I've seen a lot of things on Facebook that talk about cemetery where the admin building was.
Mm-hmm.
And on the old maps, you can see the Ancon Cemetery in the center there is at the 130 contour area.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Right in the middle.
Right in the middle. And then where the admin building is another hill, 120. And if you went to Balboa Elementary School, where those tracks are going, that's where the playground was. And there used to be like a drainage ditch that kind of went in between that 130 and 120 up there.
Yep, I remember that.
Oh, yeah.
You could sneak into the woods from there.
Yeah.
Oh,
so they were separate. The only way to get to it would be go around, like where the red line is.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So that it appears that where the admin building was not a cemetery, but the area which was area called Ridge Road definitely was.
Got you.
Yeah.
All right. So go to the next one.
That hill 130 is where the telephone tower was.
Yep. Yeah. Weather tower.
We used to all play around that part of the jungle.
All right. So this is an aerial that kind of shows the proximity. When I blew this up, I lost the source on it. Who put it on the web? But you can see where the admin building is just off to the left of this. But there's a big ravine in between those two areas, so it looks like they're right next to each other, but they really aren't.
You're right. There's two big hills.
Yeah, and then where those houses are, that's Ridge Road. I know like the Wagners live there.
Yeah,
Dave
the
Payne
Wagners
lived
live there.
there.
Yeah, you know what else could give you a good perspective here? If you look at the admin building and then you look down at Gothel's memorial down there, so that kind of gives you a idea of the distance and the separation there. Because where that text is, Gothel's memorial, all that's back in our day. That was the playground for Balboa Elementary School. Remember, you had the little track there and everything, and that's where you go right into those woods in that ravine there. And in fact, that's where you would come down on the bicycles, remember? And you'd go down that ravine and up, and there was that jump that would be right by the elementary school.
Well, that ravine had a ditch with the right amount of moss on it, and when it rained, we would fly down that.
That's right. That's right.
So the idea here was that there were about 5,000 Americans and gold roll people that were buried in this area, but I can't find that there were actually 5,000 American deaths in the canal construction.
That's almost the entire construction.
Yeah, I mean, I think there was like 3,500.
Yeah.
But what the one of those things they need to confirm, but what the articles are saying is that there were 5,000 graves here. And you can see Gorgas is just down the street, and the idea was that, they came to Gorgas, and then they buried them, just down the road.
In the front door, out the
It's a
back door.
hill, so you can't build right next door is like the most convenient area.
Sure.
And they did this between 1904 and 1914.
Okay.
Or
When there was
not
still no residences
1904,
out there yet.
1907 and 1914
Yeah.
or something like
And
that.
at that point, you're still building up Balboa. You're still filling all that stuff
Yeah,
in. It's not
they
even
were
there yet.
when they started, they weren't even going to build Balboa. They were going to build the
Right.
sea level canal. So,
Correct.
there was no need to worry about whether you're going to put people there because no one was going to live there.
Right. Right.
And then you can see the governor's house is right above the hatched area,
Yeah.
right next to Calle Gorgas. And there are reports that that area was a cemetery, and what they quote is an article that said they're moving the governor's house from Culebra. They tore it down and they were going to
Right.
rebuild it back up here, but they had to relocate graves. And there's a photo, I didn't put it in here, but there's a photo that shows 5 men that are digging up graves on Ancon Hill in 1914.
What a shit that's got to be.
That's around Punch Bowl, right? The around Punch Bowl area.
Yeah.
But you can't tell if it's like right where the area where Calle Gorgas is, or if it's the area where like Ridge Road is. But so it could just be that what they meant was that it's in the area and not exactly where the governor's mansion was.
Yeah. Well, and that seems to be a little bit more level land there, so that might have made sense.
Yeah. But you can see, what they did. It was kind of like with efficiency. You put them all together. You wouldn't just, unless they ran out of room or something like that. But anyway, I couldn't find any documentation that showed that there was any cemeteries in this area other than right in that location.
Yeah.
So go to the next one. And so this is what it looked like. And this says Panama Canal Cemetery, Ancon Hill.
Yeah.
And it has the names of people and the numbers, and it has their, things on there.
Their
And then go.
yeah.
So go to the next one. It's a very similar shot. And what you can see onto the right is that hill, and it's empty.
Is that
and
Sosa?
that Admin Hill?
Oh, that's Admin Hill there on the right.
Yeah.
Okay, and then directly behind the palm trees, then it's probably Sosa Hill.
Sosa Hill is going to be probably a little bit to the left.
That's what I'm saying. To the left, you can see another hill going up, which might be Sosa Hill.
I think it's just greenery.
Okay.
Because Admin was hill 120, and then
right. This is 130. We're at the top. 130 is the height. That's the height of the contour.
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay. So 1/3. Okay. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So this is basically on the right side of the slope.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
So if you went down in between the Admin Hill, that's where you'd find that ditch area.
And based on that, if you kind of start envisioning the roadways there, that you could almost see where the governor's house would be to the right side of this cemetery.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you would come up and go around, up. This is basically where you're standing. Where you're standing would be where Ridge Road is today.
Correct.
And then there were houses on the left side, and then, there was a ravine back behind those houses, where the Paynes lived, and that's probably why the fence was there, is to keep you from going down in the ravine.
Probably.
All right, let's go to the next one. This is kind of looking the other way.
Yeah, there's the fence now.
And
look, there's another one in the distance, another cemetery.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's the other side.
Yeah.
Of the area, but this is kind of looking the other direction.
Wow, that's a great shot. Be interested to get more perspective on that.
Unbelievable, man. Great stuff. Yeah. Great stuff, guys.
So I mean, it's kind of hard to say when this is where the cemetery. There's a fence, and it looks like it's over there. It appears like where that marking in the yellow hash area was, that's where that area was. But they relocated these graves in 1914 to Corzal.
Wow.
And then this also included when we talked about Grant losing like 180 men
Yeah.
crossing. They buried those bodies in Flamenco Island out at the causeway
Yes, I
because
saw
that's
that.
where they were waiting for their ship.
Correct.
We talked about before the Panama Railroad. That's where you boarded your ship out there,
Mm-hmm.
and so that's where they were waiting for their ship, and they were there for like 6 weeks, waiting for
In
that
cold
ship.
storage either, so
Um,
you got to
but they
bury them.
buried those men there, and then later on they dug them up and they put them in Corzal. And then there's a newspaper article in the Canal Record that says we ought to move these guys to Empire, which was now or the the um, the military base,
Yeah. Now,
and
and
do a
Nodia, let me
memorial.
ask you this: the Panama Railroad guys that built the railroad on the Pacific side there, I imagine you obviously had deaths there as well.
Yeah.
Would they be in these cemeteries as well, or would they have been to a
No,
different one?
this one wasn't started until like 1907.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. So Panama Railroad has a sketchy history where they buried their people. A lot of them just say they just buried, mass graves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
So
and
so
then
most of them were buried in Mount Hope.
Mount Hope.
Yeah,
Okay.
but there is a dark history there from the building, the
Yeah.
construction days, that when the company was running out of money, they started to preserve the bodies that were not being recalled by anyone. And then what they started to do was to sell these bodies to medical schools all around the world.
Mm.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
then
Okay.
from the money that they got from there, from those bodies, they financed the rest of the railroad construction.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
would
so
put
So not
bodies
only did we
in like
contribute to the
barrels,
canal,
pickle them, and send
yeah,
them to medical
Yeah.
schools.
Sure.
so they also contribute to medicine, not only to the
yes.
canal and the railroad, but to medicine.
Yeah, because remember, on that time, most of the people that died was from yellow fever or cholera or even dengue, when we didn't know about that
Right. Right.
disease. And it was good for those schools to study what happened to the bodies,
Yeah,
to the human body when they had this type of disease. So
hmm
Sure.
Yeah, but they
contribute a
probably
lot.
didn't discuss it with the body or the family. They just
of course, yeah, it's
they,
Right.
not.
That was part of your
Yeah, the
contract.
ethical. It was not ethical, but
No.
that's what the
It's the way
company
it
did at
works
those
sometimes.
days. Yeah,
yeah.
Well, they
But
needed
Yeah.
there
money.
wasn't no one was looking over your shoulder down there.
Correct.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
And how
Hopefully.
about
And
how about this one place called Matachin?
okay, so Matachin, there is a legend that it says that that was the place where all these Chinese people took his own life when they were having um
Mm.
the issue with the opium
Yes.
those days. But that's not 100% true. Matachin was existed even before the railroad days. The first time that it appeared on a map, it was from 1687 or something like that, around
Oh
that
wow.
time. So Matachin, it's in Spanish, it's a different word for butcher.
Okay.
And so it says that the name came from all the livestock and resources that was being
Butchered.
commerce in there, in that place, because
Mm.
that place is exactly right now where Gamboa is. So it is the exact
Mm.
place where the Camino de Cruces ended and Rio Chagres road, or part of the navigation, started. So a lot of people conveyed there.
Sure.
So it was like an open market there.
Yeah. Makes
So
sense.
that's where the name came from. And
H
even though and it was the relation with the Chinese people comes because on the construction days, when the Chinese came into Panama on the Sea Witch
Yeah.
ship, it came in, and the 2,000 Chinese that came down from that ship started working in the railroad construction right in Matachin.
Oh, okay. So it was maybe a starting point.
Yes. So
Or an
there is
ending point.
there is a relation between Mataching and the Chinese people, but it's not where they took their own life.
Okay.
These mass suicides, they took place all over the route. It was not only on that place.
Understood.
And real quick, that was because they had outlawed opium. Is that correct? And therefore, you had a
Yes.
bunch of addicts, and they
Yes,
got so desperate
exactly.
they killed themselves.
So when the Chinese people came in, they were allowed to take opium, but then a couple of years later, they prohibited that the company prohibited that, and then they started to have mental breakdowns. They started to
Withdrawals.
feel,
Because very
yeah,
addictive.
it's
It's
very
like
very
stopping drinking Panama beers. Same thing happens to us.
Yeah, that's their own prohibition, I guess.
Yeah.
and if we go back in history, this is something that came from the English people
Yes.
that had commercial relations between China
With Hong
and
Kong.
them. Yes.
Yeah,
So
the
so
infamous
so-
opium wars. Yeah.
100%.
yeah, the opium wars. Yes. So that part of their culture came from English people, not even from their own selves.
From
They came
colonizing.
from, yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Interesting.
HB had asked about Grant.
Yeah,
And
let's put that back up there.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I
and
really-
Grant, when Grant crossed, he was being transferred from New York to California.
Yeah.
There was no canal at that time. There wasn't even a railroad at the time. In fact, they were supposed to have mules, but because of so many people bidding up the rents for the mules, they ended up having to march across the isthmus instead of riding on the
Yeah,
mules.
somebody else hired the mules.
Yeah, so
If I'm not mistaken, that was the time that the army assigned him to be part of the people that were going to supervise everyone that came into California because of the gold rush, right?
Oh, okay. So
And,
because remember at that point, California was a territory, it wasn't a state.
So when Grant became president, he ordered a study commission, and they did like 7 surveys, and he actually sent a team to I guess I don't know if it was New Granada or Colombia at the time,
Sure.
to negotiate a treaty.
Yeah.
But they were fighting some war, and it just wasn't feasible at that time to
I think that's when you had those independence pushes in South America, was in those 18.
Yeah, but
60s.
Grant studied a canal route and
Sure.
was interested in
Well, he had firsthand knowledge
in picking one up. He had firsthand knowledge of it, and he there was a push to do a sea level canal, and he didn't think that was feasible because of his experience being down there.
Sure.
And so he was advocating for a lock canal, but because of world politics and wars and stuff, that that entourage that went down to Colombia, Bogota, or someplace, it didn't happen.
Yeah.
But they
Didn't get the
tried.
reception they wanted.
They tried, and then time marches on. But so Grant was interested in a canal. It just is one of the many. There are a lot of countries that are interested in a canal. We've talked about like a dozen different
From the
attempts
Russians.
for different canals. The English, the Russians, the Dutch, the Germans. Everyone. A lot of different people.
Everybody wanted a piece of Panama.
Yeah,
And they still do.
and there was a French company that got the concession, and then they couldn't pay the bond, and then they couldn't get it, and then de Lesseps got it. So, there's a lot of things going on. But so this is the image that talks about one of the funeral trains, and it's going to Mount Hope. So during that construction, they loading caskets up and taking them to Mount Hope, and that was like the silver cemetery, and there was a silver section at Corzal as well.
Yeah,
but
Can
that
you
was
imagine getting off a ship in the Atlantic side, and you see a train coming up full of caskets. You're thinking, man, what the hell did I get myself into?
On one of our sessions, I mentioned a woman that was writing in her diary going across the Panama Railroad during like gold rush times, remarking about all the like grave sites she saw along the route. Like they just buried the bodies right next to the. So I'd imagine it looked like that one that we saw with the crosses and the pile of dirt, the
Yeah.
French cemetery. It probably looked a lot like that.
Sure.
They just, they just covered the body and put a cross or maybe some marker and, or just, they just covered the body. I don't know, but it was, but they had these trains. They called them funeral trains, death trains, and they went, 2 or 3 times a day, depending
This
on
is
whether there were dynamite explosions during the canal construction or malaria, yellow fever, cholera, pneumonia,
so
whatever.
so Dave, this is actually new to me. I've never seen these pictures before, so they're quite interesting.
Yeah. Well, I got another one for you that's coming up. Go to the next one. Maybe we already passed it. There it is.
Oh,
All
wow.
right. Thank you. This one says it's in Panama City.
Right.
All the coffins.
And this is a postcard.
No.
Well,
This is-
I mean, it says a railroad
Oh,
station in
postcard.
Panama. It could be Atlantic side, Pacific side. I think it's just referring to the country.
That's true.
But and something else interesting that I learned as far as deaths, on the canal construction, these fight for malaria and yellow fever and all that. One of the things that they treated it with was quinine. Right. And
Mhm.
quinine was something they everybody drink quinine. Well, they didn't learn this until much later on. One of the side effects of continued consumption of quinine is you go deaf, you lose your hearing. And so it eventually the deaths on the canal construction, they
'Cause people couldn't
started
hear.
being more from being hit by trains because you never heard them coming than it was the
Right.
disease anymore. Which is
Mhm.
just amazing how that, you finally found a way to treat this and that ends up making you sick and killing you
Right.
anyway.
I've heard that where a lot of the deaths were people didn't hear the trains coming, which
Yeah.
sounds kind of strange because you can feel them coming.
You would think.
But all right, so let's go on to the next one. We're kind of running out of time here. So this was just one of the graveyards. There are graveyards that this one they said it was kind of found in like 1946 and near Paraiso. I don't think this is the French one that we're talking about. I haven't found where it is. But I just wanted to say there are a lot of other cemeteries. Let's keep going. Um, I think this is still another one of the Paraiso one. I mean, we know the French cemetery that you can see on the main road, but to me these iron crosses look a little bit different than
Yeah,
the
they
French
sure
ones
do.
that we know.
Yep.
Next one, and this one says that I think Ricky, what you're saying, this is what you find when you do AI. It basically says that they had to displace the graves on Ancon Hill to put the admin building on. So I've never found anything to confirm that.
That's interesting.
And I don't even know what building that is. It's not the admin building, but it's so it takes things that either people say or think, and so, but I can't really find a source.
Yeah,
to
that's referred to as
confirm
a
it.
hallucination in the AI world, and it's very true.
Yeah, so you're gonna have to watch what's going on there. But I put this anywhere on there because if you do a search, sometimes it might come up and say this happened. There was 80,000 deaths, and they were all buried at the admin building. That they ground up the bones and made concrete.
Right.
So this one is I think an Empire.
Yep. That's what it says.
So that was one of the old canal towns. It's not there anymore. Those folks. What happened to them? They probably went to Corzal.
And again,
But
you can see very simple. You dig a hole, you put them in, you cover it up, and you just throw a simple cross on there. No time.
But
for anything
Empire
else.
was a French town, and if you look at those crosses, they look a lot like the ones that I've seen at Paraiso. So those might be French graves.
Sure,
Yep,
makes sense.
that is true. Yeah.
All right.
Good
So next one.
observation.
And so this is a postcard of it. You can see the cemetery down below.
Yeah.
So at some point, these places were known where these cemeteries were, and what happened to those bodies. It's not exactly clear, and you would think with government property, government records, there's probably a record somewhere of what happened, when it happened, and where it went. But on the internet, it's not hard to find. And of course, we all know Corzal. I've got 3 relatives there. I've got a great great grandfather, a great grandmother, and a granduncle that are buried there. And
Great legacy.
this is called the gold section. The
Mhm.
U.S. section, and then there's a silver section, and then there's a lot of complaints is that the silver section is not maintained as carefully as the gold section.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
All right, so then we're going to go to talk about Cromwell, and we've kind of talked about him ad nauseum already, but so we'll go on to talk about Old Panama, and you can see on this map just on the right side. You can kind of see some properties that are black in color on the
Yep.
right side, right next to the water. The one on the top is the area that I want to focus in on, is being the area where this old cathedral used to be, and that's where the National Theater is. And this is a picture of what used to be there. And so right in the front, kind of going where that cross is, if there was a road going in front of that, left to right, I forget the name of the street, but the one going on the wall on the right side would be like Third Street, Casco Viejo, but that would be where the National Theater is, and it would be you'd kind of be looking towards the Ancon Causeway. So this is
Mm.
not looking out towards the bay, but more towards Amador.
Okay, I got you. So Ancon Hill would be to the
right.
my right. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And so you can see, I mean, it looks a lot like the old cathedral tower, and it would kind of make sense is that if that's what you were building at that time, and then you were moving the city, you just
replicate it.
build kind of what you knew.
Yeah, exactly. That was the plans in the day.
Right. But you can read reports where these buildings were so old and they're kind of falling apart, and I would imagine when it came time to build that National Theater, they thought this thing needs to come down. It's it's just so
300
old.
years old. Heck yeah, it's got to come down, or it's going to come down.
Right, but I had no idea that there were 2 of them.
Right.
And so this is looking at the seawall where the French Plaza is. I think looking back into the city.
Is that like Ancon in the background?
No, yes.
Yeah, that would be Ancon Hill in the background.
Or west,
so,
yes.
Yeah, so you can see that where the French Plaza is, it was still pretty ruinous back then. I mean, it's not it's not in very good shape, but you can see the city and then the Ancon Hill in the background. And then the next one you can see at the seawall. At that time, that looks pretty good at that area. And there were a couple of buildings in there that I don't think you see anymore. Now it's the is it the National Assembly building that's in there? There's some Panamanian legislative building in there.
It used to be the assembly before, yeah.
Assembly before.
Yeah, right now there is a theater in there, a municipal theater.
Okay.
I'm not sure what else. I think there is part of the Spain, the embassy of Spain. It's also in there.
Okay.
Like a small part of the offices are in there. Yeah.
And then we used to go to Las Bovas, that bar, and used to be below.
Yep.
On there. All right. And then this was something that I found, and this is called the water gates. So it looked like at some point, and I'm not exactly sure where this was, but you have your tender boats and stuff, and this is a walled city, but it looked like they had this staircase that came down, and you could, if you go to Venice and stuff, that's how you do a lot of this stuff. You
remember again the
boat
tide
parks, and there's a little staircase, and you go up to the sidewalk.
Well, you might that might be high tide there, and low tide you could probably walk further down those stairs.
Sure, but I just thought it was interesting that basically to get to Panama City at that time, there was a water gate to get into it. I
That
mean,
actually looks to me to be the place where Playa Prieta is right now.
is it?
Okay.
Yeah.
It
Oh, the
looks
one we saw earlier. Yep.
Yeah,
yes.
it could be on that side. Um, but it's just one of those things that,
Yeah, let's.
unless you think about it, things were really different back then.
There you go.
Right
Yeah,
there,
no,
yeah.
yeah,
Exactly. That's the same. I
It
think
sure
that
yeah,
that
does
will
look
be
like it.
the
Yeah, no
yeah,
kidding.
yeah, yeah. Okay, I got you.
because
Yeah.
that will be the same exact spot where the wall will finish
Mhm.
Right.
in the Bay Area. Yeah.
All right. See, so now if you ever go there, you can look for those types of
Yeah, no
like
kidding.
Yeah.
those
Mhm.
things, and so you get these images, like they pop up. You look at books, and they pop up in there, and you're like, I've never seen that. Where
Yeah,
is that? And
that's
how do you
amazing.
go and find it? So I wanted to share those with you because we don't always talk about Panama City. We're mostly focused on Canal Zone,
Right.
but without this Panama Railroad and all of the success that it had, and all the scheming that Cromwell did,
Yeah, no kidding.
um, you know, he was talking to Hannah. He probably financed this campaign. He financed Taft, um, for sure, and he wanted to be Secretary of State. Didn't get it, but he also, I think, made these deals happen. And there was a lot of money to be made, and
Heck
I
yeah.
think he made it. And he was in a position. He had the skills, and I think without his influence, telling people, "Hey, forget Nicaragua, come to Panama," it would have never happened. And like Buenaventura went up to, and Amador went up to New York City, went calling on Cromwell, and Cromwell like split to France. He's like, I don't want to be anywhere near this place. I don't want to be. I don't want to be. I don't want to be caught as being
You know what?
associated
You know
with you
what's
guys.
interesting about that, Dave? We've learned that from your history about Amador going up to New York and this secret mission, right? Going through Jamaica and all that stuff,
Mhm.
and so prior to that, or when we learned that, we're thinking, wow, so these guys are going up there and they're going to meet and have this conversation and everything. But truth is, they were old friends. They'd worked together on the
Yeah.
railroad 20 years before that already, and so it wasn't as organic, I guess, as you can think about
Right.
it. These guys
Sure.
already knew each other. They'd been
It
dealing with each other.
when you start reading these things, it almost looks like it's Cromwell's plan. He's like,
Yes.
I'm the matchmaker here, and he was willing to donate $6 million for the revolution.
Well,
And
heck yeah, 'cause
then
they're going to
he
buy up
caught
half of
wind
Panama
that the
anyway.
that the Colombians knew that Amador was coming up, and he's like, I'm not going to get caught in this.
Yeah.
And so he fled, and then Buenaventura finds out that they're not getting the $6 million, and he said, all right, I'll put up my own money. But he also gets the audience with Roosevelt, and part of it is because I think that Cromwell set it up.
Yeah.
And then
Sounds like
Buenaventura
it.
comes to Amador and says, President kind of gave me a wink and a nod that they're going to support us. So do the revolution on the 3rd,
So it
and
sounds like between
we're going to bribe the Colombians.
right between Cromwell and Buenaventura, there was money to be made, and
Yeah.
which is fine by everybody because it gave us the Canal Zone.
Yeah,
So
and Buenaventura and Cromwell, even though Cromwell's in New York and Buenaventura's in Panama, or but then he went to Paris.
right.
And that's
They
where
knew
that
each other. They worked with each other, and
Yeah.
they both owned stock in the company
Yeah.
and had everything to lose.
and that's where we hear that Wall Street built Panama. That makes
Yes.
all the sense in the world.
Well,
They financed
Aspinwall
the
was
whole
a Wall
operation.
Street broker.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, I mean, he did it to
Correct.
make money, and it just
Panama Railroad.
so happened that the gold rush happened right when you got the concession.
Yeah. I mean,
So
could have been better.
they were basically begging the steamship companies to come, and the U.S. had to give them a subsidy
Sure, the
to
mail
carry the
contract.
mail.
Yes,
But
exactly.
you can see after that, I mean, the railroad was making money hand over fist.
They didn't need a subsidy, if
Yeah.
anything.
They didn't need a subsidy, but they
no,
sure as heck didn't share it.
no. And then you see, like you showed on that map here, where there was a lot of area that was owned by the railroad that they weren't even operating the railroad there,
Yeah.
but it was
So
part of their
that
land. Their
railroad
investment.
land, all that land was owned by the railroad
Yeah.
until the 1955 treaty.
Yep.
Correct.
And
Exactly.
that gave that was reverted lands. That's
Sure.
what, if you look at the old maps, the canal zone went 5 miles on either side. The carve out was Panama City with very,
It
very
was.
small footprint. Now you know why, because Panama City was a very, very small footprint.
Sure was.
Cologne was a very, very small footprint on Manzanillo Island,
Yep.
but it was within the 5 miles. So they carved those out. And then they gave New Cristobal away as part of the 55 treaty. So the land reversions, and we get bent out of shape about Carter, but I mean, Eisenhower gave it away 50 years before that. I mean,
Paitea. There was no Paitea until the U.S. gave up
yeah,
that land.
Paitea was part of the canal zone.
Yes, it sure was.
And all that area was. I mean, so
Amazing.
we're looking at that map. You know, everything where that Coconut Grove was, that was all canal zone.
Transformation.
Technically, it was all canal zone.
That from 18, well, almost really 1855. You know, when the railroad was built until probably about 1925, 1930. Panama was transformed on a monthly basis. It grew, it changed, it shrunk, it added it. I mean, it was amazing.
There's a 1912 plan for Panama City that shows like the street networks, like Caledonia and Chorillo and those areas. I think it's Santa Ana, and there's actually a Santa Ana street, like right where the fruit market used to be. You know what I'm talking about, by Ancon Station. That road that parallels there is called Santa Ana, which is what's the name of that hacienda. And then of course Corundu we know, and so you see some of these names that go way back.
Yeah.
And we have no idea where they originated from. But if you look back there, you can see probably like Sosa was probably the landowner of Sosa Hill.
True. Makes sense.
And different things like that.
Amazing.
But I also thought that maybe Sosa was named after one of the first Panamanian or the first conquistadores of mayors of Panama that died like right after he was appointed. But who knows?
Not uncommon down there with everything going on there, but man, this was really, really interesting though, because it you know, the Panama Railroad was the initial catalyst to get everybody back involved, because it seems like up until the Panama Railroad, Panama, or what we know as Panama, because it wasn't Panama then, had kind of died off in popularity, right? The Spanish Empire had come to an end, and it was just, you know, an old territory now. Everything went into disrepute, and then the railroad came in, the gold rush, and then later on the canal, and suddenly it all came back to prominence because, you know, in that 200-year span, not a lot changed in Panama. In fact, it stayed a very small place with two little towns on either side, you know. But now this is interesting. This is really cool. No, there's a lot of great Panama Railroad history here. I want to ask you a favor if you can, because one of the things that we do talk about a lot here is the new Panama Railroad system that's being put in, right? You know, Panama's always had a railroad that we know from, you know, Atlantic to Pacific. There's been a railroad in the interior that a lot of people don't know about, you know, out in Puerto Armuelles and not all areas. There was a lot of railroad back there as well. You know, if that's something you could do some research and come back and give us some history, and I think that would be fascinating as well to learn about.
Yeah, there is actually a group of people that they're trying to rescue the history of the Chiriquí, of the national, the Ferrocarril Nacional de Chiriquí.
Okay.
And they are actually going to do a special event on the April the 22nd, which is the 110th anniversary of the railroad. They're going to do a special event in Chiriquí. They're inviting me to go there and also work with them. So maybe I can contact them to see if there was anyone that would like to talk about that.
That would be fantastic.
In the program, yeah.
That would be great. Yeah, that, and then also, you know, any progress on the new rail lines and the metro and stuff, because that's always, you know, fascinating as well. And it kind of
actually yesterday there was a big work through over that railroad. They started asking for people to apply to jobs inside the railroad. So
nice.
On every single area, they are looking for people to start working with them.
From engineering all the way down to laborers. Yeah,
progress is progressing along.
Yeah.
You know, one thing I did mention is that the old Panama Railroad used to go like it used to come down through like Corazal, and then it would turn at Albrook, like um, Andrews Avenue, the where the gate was, you know,
Okay.
going that way, and then it would cross over where we know the airfield is, and it would go across, and then it would come in. Now there's a shopping mall. I don't know what shopping mall it's called now, but there's a Starbucks store there. But it would be just a little bit north of where the Starbucks is, and then it would come across. And if you remember where the gate to Corundu was,
Mm-hmm.
when we were going to Corundu Junior High School, we used to go through a gate,
Yeah.
and like where um, the
Hollywood.
the river, the
Yeah.
Corundu River used to go, and then
Mhm.
it goes underground right in that area. But right where the where the river goes underground and where that gate was where the old Panama Railroad crossed and then went into the city.
Yeah.
So every time we
That
went
is,
to Corundu Junior High School, we crossed over the old Panama Railroad.
yeah, that was part of the Panama Air Depot,
Yeah.
and I remember seeing the trains going that way because there was like aduana offices in there,
Mm-hmm.
and
Mhm.
they had some freight service going that way in the mid
But
'90s.
no,
I
but
have
the old
footage
but the
about that.
old track used to come across where the airstrip is. It used to come down
Right.
the entrance into Albrook, and
To
then it
go to the
would.
on if you're looking at Ancon Hill, it would go to the left side of Ancon Hill towards Panama City
Mhm.
versus what we traditionally go through Balboa and then around that
Mhm.
way.
Right.
You
Right.
know,
Yeah.
Yeah,
interesting.
it came, down through Andrews Avenue. Then there was that big drainage ditch. But right about that area, it would start to curve and go into the Panama City, and
Right.
kind of goes right through the middle of that mall that was built. And then when you crossed into Corundu Road, it's right where about where that guard gate was, and
Yeah.
where the Corundu River goes underground, and then you would go straight. Now it's part of Fourth of July Avenue and stuff. Um,
Mm. Yeah. This is
and
about where the
it's all
Chinese
been
garden was
rebuilt,
there.
but all that was the original Panama Railroad.
Yep, I remember that. Yeah.
Interesting.
So
Interesting.
one if you guys let me before we wrap up, I want to just thank someone that is in the chat right now,
Sure.
Mr. Akira Matsushita.
Yes.
He's our dearest friend from Japan.
Yes.
He's just tuning in, and he enjoys these kind of things, and also the pictures that I shown, they're very special to him because those are the ones that the people from the diplomatic mission that came in 1860 would have seen when they arrived in Panama.
Ah,
So
Right.
so just to recall that story, the first diplomatic mission to the U.S. from Japan. They came in from Japan into California, and from California through the Panama Railroad, and then they went to DC. And it was here in Panama where the first time that they had the first contact with trains.
Yep. Correct. And I remember him talking about that because one of the things that we were looking at was there was a town right in the middle,
Yeah,
a little bit, I guess, technically north of Gamboa now, along the
yeah.
route of the canal, and it was it San Carlos or San Obispo or
Pablo.
Pablo.
It will be San Pablo, and
San
it
Pablo.
was, yeah, San Pablo. It was the town that was right before the bridge that crossed the Chagres River
Correct.
before Gamboa. Before Gamboa, yeah. And there
Yes.
was a big bridge right there called Barbacoa's Bridge.
Yes, exactly. And that was the town area, which was one of the stop offs for the
Yes.
railroad. And so I remember Akita had mentioned that when you were on the first time you joined us, that
Yeah.
he mentioned that story as well, how they had stayed there for maybe a day or something or visited and then they continued on. And so that was something he wanted to research was where this actual town was because it was one of the towns that eventually became part of the canal. And so it just went right over that
Yes.
area.
Yeah. Another shout out to the Japanese is they are the biggest investor in the new Puerto Armuelles right now.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
So thank you for that, and cheers for that, Japan.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also they are a big part of the investors of the Linea Tres, the third line of the subway.
Excellent. Yep.
Those they gave us a lot of money for the tunnel that it's being built under the canal right now.
Yeah.
And they built our canal mules.
Yeah.
Oh,
No,
exactly. Yeah, the Mitsubishi ones. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Amazing.
no, they do. They have a great history with Japan, and we've had, Akira has chimed in several times on our show. It's great to have him chime in. It's funny to think about that, because here it's Saturday morning in Japan, it's daytime over there, and he's watching our show, having maybe some breakfast and enjoying our
indeed.
history here.
Yeah,
but,
yeah.
It's very interesting because with all of this information that we have searched together and found together, he's also publishing regularly about these stories.
Yeah.
And
Oh, wonderful.
he mentions about Panama, and even the embassy called him to share stories with them, so they
look at
can
that.
build I think they are building up a book or something like that with the memories of
Well-
those diplomatic mission that came into Panama.
Sure.
Well, he recently posted some sketches, I think, from that
Yeah.
group
Yes.
that came
Saw that.
off the coast of Naos. That shows the ships off
Exactly,
the
yeah.
coast of Naos, and then like a bunch of buildings there on kind of close to where San Jose Rock is on that far side.
Yeah.
And I would never have guessed in a million years that there was any development on that side of
Right.
Naos Island.
Yeah. Well,
So
that was a big landing point for ships. All the shipping that was
yeah.
coming in was stopping there.
Yeah, but all the pictures we see are from the other side.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of like the
You
dark
took
side of the
pictures of
moon
the
over
ship.
there. Huh? And there's like, oh, there was stuff going on over there.
That's a great
Yeah.
analogy.
So I was thinking that's the place I want to do my underwater archaeology, because that's where the ships were and that's where the port was. Something
you're
fell
probably
off
right.
the boat.
I'll bet you could find a couple of old coins or bottles or something around that area.
Something.
No kidding. Yeah, that's a great
It's
point.
been military off limits for the military for 120 years.
Yeah. Well, even at one point they had a military barracks out there, when they're the defense of the canal.
Well, I mean, they had the big guns right up at the top of that hill.
Those little islands have played a big role, not just
so
in
no
our
one
beer
was out
drinking.
there scavenging for stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. No kidding.
It's still there. If it's there, it's still there.
Yep, absolutely. So anyway, listen, guys, again, thank you so much for taking the time to, I know you guys work your asses off to come up with all this great information. And as always, we learn so much, so many aha moments and whatnot. So thank you again for doing this. Nodier, thank you for joining us as well tonight. It's always great to get that Panama Railroad perspective. And
Nodier, tell them where you were last night.
I was in a concert in the Balboa Theater.
Right. Was that the air play? Was it air supply that played?
No, Air Supply. They were in Atlapa. I was in a concert from Sarah Willis. Sarah Willis is the first French horn of the Berlin Philharmonic.
Oh, wow! Okay.
He was visiting us here in Panama and doing a special concert here that is called Mozart and Mambo. And she has mixed classical music with Cuban rhythms, and they are in a tour right now in all Latin America.
That's awesome.
It's good to hear that the Balboa Theater is still in use.
No kidding.
And the acoustics are for that type of music.
Yeah.
That's good.
And actually, it looks very good. I think they have renovated it a little bit, and it's looking pretty good right now.
That's great. Well, thank you for keeping us up to date with the history of our old stomping grounds, because we went there many times to enjoy that place. But again, thank you so much for doing what you do, Nodier, to bring us that railroad history. Dave, as usual, thank you for your monthly contribution to our Canal Zone history. It's always like I said, there's always aha moments here for us, and we absolutely love it. So
yeah, and thank you for raising our IQ levels, guys. We really
no kidding,
appreciate that. Man.
Yeah, we definitely
you,
up our bar talk for sure. So, but anyhow, thanks again, guys. Have yourselves a great weekend. And real quick, Dave, what do we got for next month? What are you thinking?
What got me started on this was canal towns, and I thought I'd start at the beginning where they all start from, and so that's why I kind of picked this tonight. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick a canal town in some sort of um, I community icon and just talk about those types of things. Like I've been thinking about Balboa Pool. I've been seeing a lot of pictures of Vince, the lifeguard,
Yeah.
on Facebook, and I know they've done things, so that's why that always comes up, because it's nice. It's nice to see some of the old pictures of Balboa Pool, and we all went there. A lot of us went there.
A lot of great stories, yeah.
You know, so
Well, there's some great history of it, the way
Yeah.
it looked even before we went there, because it changed quite a
yeah,
bit when we
and
went
you know
there.
they had a whole culture of aquatics.
Yeah.
Back then.
I bumped into Vince last Thanksgiving dinner at
Alright.
the Albrook Hotel.
Nice.
He was right there, and I had a chance to talk to him a little bit. Yeah,
He's a great guy. I mean, this
An
guy,
icon, yeah.
absolutely. He's got a smile
Yeah.
from ear to ear always.
Yeah, yeah. The
So I
million
think
dollar
every month, this month I'm gonna pick something old and kind of something new,
Right on.
and just like different towns, things that maybe it's the Goethals Memorial, or maybe it's something related to some aspect of a town
Right.
that we probably don't know about.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. No, that'd be awesome. Yeah, we swim because of him. That's right. And that was that presentation that Alex did at the reunion last year. Was with Vince, and we swim because of him, and just a great guy. Vince was always somebody that always had a smile on his face. Always does have a smile on his face. Even to this day, he seems to be that.
I even have pictures of my grandmother at the Balboa Pool.
See him at some. I mean, there again, that's
like a
he's
6-year-old. It's like
amazing, and it's a different look. I mean, Balboa Pool had
Yeah.
what the area that we used to sit in the shallow end was all where the bleachers were. On the opposite side of
Yeah.
where we got used to it.
And every once in a while, I'll see a picture on there, and someone will say, "That's not Balboa Pool." I'm like, yeah, it was.
It sure is. Not the one
It
know.
didn't
but
look like
is.
it looked like that in the 30s, but
Yeah,
not
no
how we
kidding.
knew it. But
Heck
just
yeah.
some interesting things that
Cool. Well, we're
we'll
looking forward
find
to it,
we'll
man,
find
because-
stuff, but it'll be more. Each one of the towns, I think I'll just pick one and go on to the next one, and find some type of community.
Well, let us know ahead of time so we can start putting the word out there, and so some of the folks that maybe have some history with that town that might be able to contribute to the chat or to join us as well to share in your knowledge base there, because you are a Canal Zone historical brain, man, and we're thankful for it. We appreciate you guys doing it. But
2
anyhow,
years.
listen, guys, it's been a great show. A little on the long side, but a lot of cool stuff to learn there. So again, thank you so much for taking the time to join us. Looking forward to next month, and Noya, looking forward to some more Panama Railroad stories from
Anytime,
you.
guys.
Don't forget, guys, you can visit him. He's got the new YouTube channel out now. He's on Instagram. He's on Facebook. He's on X, and look for PRR History or PR_history. And you can find he's always actively putting stuff out there. So again, guys, thank you. Take care. Have a great weekend, guys.
You too. Thank you.
All righty. Hey, that was pretty cool, man. That's some good railroad
Like I
history.
said, man, our IQ just went, shoo, our Canal IQ just shot up. That was a lot of good stuff there, Willie.
Well, I'll tell you what,
Good
next
show,
week,
boys.
Next week, our IQ is going to go up even more. We've got a great guest
Oh,
next weekend.
yes. Don't wanna
Lance Wiskowski is joining us. He worked in the dredging division back in the 70s. Okay, so, we mentioned this before, that the one constant you've had in the Panama Canal from day one of digging until today is dredging. It is still going on constantly. It is something that you got to keep going to keep that canal open. But there's a big history there. Some big, massive equipment and just different operations they did. And I'm really looking forward to that.
And we have a little Hitler history to talk about as well.
Yeah,
So
we do have
tune in next week, guys.
But it should be a great show. We're going to learn a lot about the dredging and keeping that canal open and how all that works and whatnot. A lot of fun coming up there. Later on in the month, of course, Canal Zone Dictionary. We're going to have that as well. We're going to do some excavating, and some the canal review again. That was a really, really fun show we did last month. So looking forward to that. But anyhow, Ricky, the bus is saying to get out of here. So
Yes,
get the weekend
guys,
off, man.
thank you for sticking with us. We noticed the numbers at the beginning of the show, so you guys stuck with us throughout the whole night. We really appreciate that. 2 hours, 45 minutes. Thank you, guys. We'll see you next week.
Cheers,
From the
everybody.
Bottom of our hearts, we love you. Thank you.
Salud.